questions or comments, additions, revisions? Seeing none, I'll need to move those. Member Tork, second by Member Dart. All those in favor? And those minutes have been accepted. Business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, Source Protection Committee appointments. Report number SPA 0517. I need to move it on the floor. Question, comment. Moved by Member Davey, seconded by Member Dart. Question, comment. Seeing none, all those in favor of receiving those appointments? Opposed? Oh, you have a question? Receiving the report. Do we have someone coming forward on that? Jamie? Jamie, welcome.
Good morning, Board. Mr. Chair, just to give you a little summary from last week, the workshop went very well. 18 stakeholder groups were represented by 25 attendees. For example, Member Beatty came from the NPCA board, and we've already been able to start some of the follow-up meetings with attendees who were there and were not able to attend. A workshop outcomes report will be provided by the end of July, and the workshop materials are up on the website and have been distributed to those stakeholders who expressed interest and who are not able to come. At the end of the day, it was geared around 7 questions that we asked of the attendees of the workshop. And for example, should we prepare for a new intake in Niagara Falls? Should we investigate improving municipal supply protection? Should we model the effect of oil pipeline leaks on intakes? Should we investigate climate change impacts on water quality? Should we improve protection of highly vulnerable aquifers? Should we help protect groundwater users? And should we be considering anything else? So it went well, and we look forward to bringing you a report in the fall.
Thanks, Jamie. Just stay at the podium, and we're going to open it up to questions or comments from committee members. Member Timms.
What was the question about the Niagara Falls, new Niagara Falls intake?
Yes. So the Niagara Falls intake right now has what's called an intake protection zone 1. It's about a kilometer upstream of the intake, has what we call a vulnerability score. This informs what policies are developed. So Niagara Falls, the same as DeQ and Port Colborne and Welland, have policies that inform activities on the land. So the Niagara Falls intake is planned to be relocated for 2 time periods of 6 months and another 6 months, perhaps around 2020, 2022. And so the question remains whether or not monies and efforts should be spent to remodel this new intake location. For those of you who are familiar with the area, it would move from being on the Chippewa Channel across from Chippewa to being in the main river quite close to the International Control Works. And so that was one of the questions asked.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the region is involved in that process. This is happening because the hydro canal is going to be drained for maintenance purposes for those 2 periods. And so the intake is temporarily relocated to the river and will come back to the original location once we're done. And so the opportunity to see the effects around the intake from the 2 different locations is there for those 6-month periods. And your question was, does the source water protection spend money on monitoring the differences, or whether one site is preferable over the other?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The question that was posed was, should we map a new intake protection zone for the temporary intake and then consider whether or not there should be corresponding policies for that temporary intake? Like so many efforts, when the mapping exercise is done, that's a snapshot in time. And when the landscape changes, how dynamic should your mapping be? And so the source protection plan was completed back in 2013, and the update report we'll be bringing to you, and I'll be glad to meet with any of you if you want to know more, is how many other things should we be considering for the future, either that may happen or we know will happen.
So the recommendation that'll come to the fall is you'll be recommending spend the money to map or don't?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. One of the recommendations that came out of last week was that I would meet with some of the public works staff in August to refine some numbers to think about options and how we design this report. We'll try to get some preliminary costs, but there is the possibility that the cost would be solely borne by the municipalities, which is largely the messaging from the province right now.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to note the potential or the possibilities of monitoring the effects or the health of the river into these two time periods for a couple of different things. Source water protection is one of them. But as the Conservation Authority, we have the parallel process of mapping and health of the river. So there are two opportunities, two 6-month periods that are really going to make provide an opportunity to monitor, say, the natural flow of the river under this circumstance where it'll not be siphoned off into the channel. So the river will have I think, a steady flow into the Niagara River. The Chippewa would steadily flow. So there's opportunities to see, the comparison, and we might be able to use those comparisons in any discussions we have with OPG on the effects of the river from the backflow. So I look forward to this report in terms of water quality, and I think we should be looking at the opportunities to look at all the other aspects of the health of the Welland River when it's got its natural course of flow. Just if that could be noted, Mr. Chairman, then we can follow up.
So noted. So the data that is being collected, that will reflect Member Timms? No, it will not.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the scope of the source water work would not include that at this time, okay, but we could add that in. But I would recommend perhaps discussions with like Steve Miller and other staff to decide the best way. But that would not have been the initial intention, but perhaps that is good. The reason being why is that when the river, it's a staff thing we should get back to you more detail on to try and decide how to parse, but I very much agree with Member Timms that it's an excellent opportunity to gain information that will help inform other aspects of our business practices.
Okay, all right, so through collaboration with our staff, certainly I do believe in data mining as far as a worthy exercise. If we have the opportunity to gather as much data as possible, let's do that. But to Jamie's point, we will confer with staff just to see how we can accommodate that. So we'll note that, Member Timms, and thank you for bringing that forward. Any other questions of the presenter? Member Beatty.
I just have one. Sorry, I wasn't able to make it for the stakeholder forum. Did the question of the encasement of the DQ water supply come up, or is that thought to be a work in progress already?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's a number of aspects to that. I've been talking with both Niagara Region and Ontario Power Generation because a number of portions of the, for those who aren't familiar, the water treatment plant in DQ Falls receives its water from the Welland Canal, and that water is from a channel over 100 years old. And there are a number of drains underneath that channel, too, that feed Lake Gibson. It's very complex. So Ontario Power Generation has already encapsulated a number of portions of that canal east of Beaver Dams Road. And we're going to be meeting in early August to look at the details of that. But in regards to encapsulating the canal from Beaver Dams to the DQ water treatment plant, I'm waiting for a response back from the region because that's noted in the wastewater and water master servicing plan. So I'm looking forward to them providing me more details because that's been an active work between them and OPG, and I haven't yet received the right person with the right details yet.
While I still have you there, I just wanted to acknowledge the new members of the board. I know that was a previous report that we just did, but I think it's important to actually recognize Mr. Bodamine. He is a professional engineer with over 35 years of experience in undertaking municipal water, wastewater, stormwater management projects in Niagara Region in the city of Hamilton. He is presently the owner and operator of a blueberry farm in the hamlet of Ridgeville in the town of Pelham, he becomes our newest member on source water protection as a public at large member. And as well, I want to recognize Ms. Michaud. Ms. Michaud is a professional engineer with over 15 years of experience in the field of water resources. She is currently a practicing water resource engineer with the firm Terra Dynamics Consulting. In addition to her role of teaching environmental studies at Niagara College, she becomes a member from our commerce sector. So please, on behalf of the board, extend them greetings and welcome aboard, and we look forward to working with our two newest members. Thank you for the presentation. I will need a mover. Yes, absolutely. I will need a mover to accept the report. Moved by Member Quirk, seconded by Member Kaspersets. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you so much for the presentation, Jerry. Other business. Is there any other business any members wish to bring forward at this time? Seeing none, I will need a mover to adjourn. Moved by Member Joyner, seconded by Member Dart. All those in favor of adjournment? Opposed? And that is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for the presentations. We're going to take just a couple of minutes. Did you get your coffee? You good? Yeah? All right. Oh, we got good Member Maloney here as well. Okay, so we're going to start the full authority board meeting in just a couple of minutes. Thank you for board members for your attendance this morning. Note, the archived recorded meeting is available on the NPCA website. Our meetings are live stream videoed. The recorded video of the full authority meeting is not considered the official record of that meeting. The official record of the authority meeting shall consist solely of the minutes approved by the full authority board meeting. I will call this full authority board meeting to order at 9:48. Welcome in the gallery and board members. Our first order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Thank you, Member Maloney, seconded by Member Beatty. All those in favor of the adoption of the agenda? That is moved. Yes.
Could I add an item under other business, and that would be the Conservation Foundation Governance Committee?
Okay. Thank you, Member Beatty, seconded by Member Quirk. We will be adding that under other business. Member Timms? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, members. Any other business? Seeing none, moves us to declaration of conflict of interest. Any members wish to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing none, our first order of business are delegations, and we have a delegation respecting Mickey DeFrucio and the great initiatives that we're doing with respect to Mickey's initiative, which is Pollinator Gardens. So I'm going to ask our delegates to come forward. Carrie and Deanna, welcome.
Good morning. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to present a wonderful new project to you today. We know we don't need to tell this group anything about the level of commitment and the great work of Mr. Dominic DeFrucio. But for the benefit of the others present today, I'll start by saying Mr. DeFrucio has been a stalwart of the conservation ethic on the NPCA board for the past 24 years. In that time, he and his family have attended many events and public meetings in support of the efforts of staff and the communities we serve. As many of you will know, Mickey goes a step further, leading by example, literally rolling up his sleeves and getting his hands dirty. He grows milkweed plants in his home greenhouse, the host plant for his beloved monarch butterflies. He donates these plants to the NPCA every year, and they're used in our restoration projects and in the landscaping of our own properties to further the improvements of the habitat of the monarchs and other pollinators. A few months ago, our new CAO came to me and others with the idea to honor Mr. DeFrucio and his efforts with a new program. The plan is to establish 2 to 3 pollinator gardens annually for the next 5 years. We would like to work with our municipal partners to build these legacy gardens on publicly owned land. The gardens will be roughly 200 square meters each and be planted using only native wildflowers that serve as either host or nectar plants for native pollinators. An education sign will be erected in each garden to help tell the story of the importance of pollinators and the commitment of Mr. DeFrucio. Each plot will cost roughly $3,500 to $4,000, and we will make every effort to work with local partners to offset these costs through in-kind donations and the leveraging of funds. We hope you will agree today that this new program will help us build improved habitat for local pollinators and further strengthen the ties with our stakeholders, all while honoring the passion and dedication of one of our longest standing board members. I'd like to turn it over to our coordinator of community outreach and volunteers, Carrie Royer, to tell you about what we've been doing so far this year.
Good morning. So this year we have done 2 of these pollinator projects so far. And see, these are some of the partnerships that we have made already this year. So General Motors, they have a program, GM Green, where they devote 1 day of the year to doing a green project in their community. We also worked with Niagara College, the District School Board of Niagara, and the DSBN Academy. We worked with the Mel Swart Park Committee, the City of Thorold. So the first project that we did was the Lower Virgil Dam Conservation Area, and this happened on Monday, June 5th. So this was the GM Green Day. And this project that is in Niagara-on-the-Lake, of course, the Virgil Dam. And so you can see some of the people out there planting, and Mickey watching with a big smile. So the site preparations were done. So this is actually a collaboration between all 3 of the NPCA departments. So there was staff from the watershed department, corporate services was myself, and Deanna, who's in operations. And all 3 of us worked together to coordinate the logistics as well as the site preparation and the actual planting day. And the partners from Niagara College and GM were out to help us as well with the site preparations. This picture is a little hard to see, but before each of the plantings, we do a little bit of an information presentation about the importance of native plants and pollinators and why we're doing what we're doing and why the pollinators are important both economically and environmentally, and how we can help them using native plants. If there was a desire by board members to come out at this time to say a few words, if we're in your municipality, this would be an opportunity for board members to come out and say a few words as well. So this project has been a really great collaboration between the partners. So on the left there you see Heidi Levitsky from GM. She's our main contact there who organized the day with us. Everybody is working together and actually doing something, putting something in the ground, and the results are great. These projects also provide a volunteer opportunity for some of our volunteers who want to get out and help with a conservation project. Oftentimes when we're working on private land, it's difficult to get volunteers to come out because it requires an extra level of coordination. So by doing things on public lands, it's easy to get volunteers to come out. We can also help high school volunteers who want to contribute and get their volunteer hours that they need to graduate. This year, the Niagara College students, when we did the Virgil Dam project, they started an extra educational activity for the DSBN students that were present. So they brought the materials necessary to create seed bombs. So basically, these are native seeds rolled up with paper mache, and then they're tossed into the long grass behind the garden that we planted, and that will just help to create some additional species of native plants on the property. So something fun for the students to do when they're learning at the same time. So I think everybody was having a good time. The planting conditions were fairly good here, and really it was just a great collaboration. And then this is the second pollinator project that we did. So this is at Mel Swart Park. So this is Mickey's hometown. So we really wanted to make sure we got one in there this year. So Mel Swart Park is close to Lake Gibson for those that have never been there. It's a conservation park. It's been there for many years. So Mickey and his lovely wife, Elizabeth, have attended both pollinator planting gardens so far, and he had shared some of his homegrown milkweed plants for us to plant in both of these projects. At this particular site at Mel Swart Park, Mickey also donated a native maple tree to further enhance the garden, and a second maple tree was planted at the DeQ house just down the road. So thank you for that, Mickey. Senior management team came out to support Mickey as well, Mr. Graham and Mr. Brickle. And these are the volunteers. There were about 20 volunteers that came out that day, and the conditions were pretty dry there, so it was difficult planting, but everybody stayed. We got rained on a couple of times, but the sun came out eventually, and we were able to get over 1,500 plants in the ground that day. The mayor of Thorold, Mr. Ted Luciani, and regional councillor Henry D'Angela came out to support their friend Mickey at this site, and they showed us how to plant Mickey's famous milkweed plants. So thank you, Mickey, for all you've done in support of local pollinators and the work of the NPCA, and we're happy to do this project in your name.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Deanna. So just a quick story. Probably within the first couple of days of me taking over his chair, Mickey called me and said, I want a meeting with you because I have a couple of things. Actually, there was more than a couple of things that Mickey wanted to do. That was the first meeting I took, was with Mickey. And Mickey had three projects that he wanted to get done. One, obviously, was the pollinator gardens at Mel Schwartz Park. The other one was the tree planting. And the other one is, we're working on it, and it's the DNC lands in Niagara-on-the-Lake with respect to a memorial site for lost veterans. So we're working on the third one, but I'm happy to say that we've knocked off two of those things. And instead of slowing down, Mickey is actually taking a more active role. He wanted to sit on more boards and committees, so he sits on our foundation board now. He's been integral in our CEO selection committee. He has stepped up to the plate and really, led by example. So, Mickey, on behalf of the board, and I'm going to open it up to the board for individual comments as well. But thank you. Thank you for everything you do. You are a true treasure here at the NPCA. So, thank you. Member Joyner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies, thank you for the presentation, and Mickey, thanks so much for just being you. I would like to put the committee on notice that the Township of West Lincoln would like to do a project in the spring of 2018, and over the next couple of months, I would like to see if we can get together and work on a location if that's possible. Thank you.
Great comments. Any other comments from board members? We'll go around this way, Member Timms, and to the side.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to express my continued admiration for Member DeFrucio, his commitment to conservation and this authority over the years that I served. I've been on this committee, my first term, my second term. The list of projects hasn't changed a bit much, Chairman Annunziata, but you forgot the pig roast. But I'm sure that's coming as well. Okay. Mickey, your commitment to particularly the pollinator garden project and the monarch butterflies is admirable, and the number of years you've been persisting is starting to pay off around the region, and I think that this example that's been offered here as a project we'd be pleased to help with. I hope the board we have an opportunity to go through and proceed with this project. So, Mickey, thanks for being Mickey. Carry on. I look forward to some more milkweed this spring. Thanks.
I want to thank everyone responsible for this. I never expected anything like this. But Bruce and I, last year, we put the first pollinating garden out the door here. And I was just talking to the guy, supervisor here, and he says everything is just flourishing. So that makes me happy. Anyway, I just want to say something to the public. You never hear the good things we do, and I think it's time that the media start printing the good things this authority does, and our leadership, and our previous leaderships. They all done a good job, and they're all dedicated to the environment and water source. Thank you.
Thanks, Mickey. Questions, comments? No. Member Diodati.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As Mayor Joyner said, we've made the same announcement in Niagara Falls that we're going to be, we're doing 10 parks a year now, and we're going to go into the neighborhood and ask them what kind of amenities they want, including, but not limited to, but certainly encouraged, pollinator gardens. And I'd be proud if we had some Mickey's milkweed planted in Niagara Falls as well. So I would welcome our staff to work with us to help do that and to do it right. I know we've done it in the Niagara Parks Commission. I sit on the commission as well. We just opened one just last week, and this is great. So I want to make sure we're on record as being in line in the queue, right behind Mayor Joyner, to make sure that we're next to do this. And we don't want to just do one here or there. We want to do several every year. So hopefully we can be part of that mix. And as well, the other thing we've done in the city of Niagara Falls, we've created a tree policy, which I'm hoping we can encourage all other municipalities to do, is sometimes you have to remove trees for whatever reason, especially the ash trees or whatever. Maybe we're having a problem with sidewalks, roads, or sewers, but it's the replacement of the trees. And our policy of the city of Niagara Falls is when you remove a tree, you replace it with 2 or 3. So the net difference will be a gain in trees and also native species, so we don't get nailed like we did in the past with elm disease or the emerald ash borer, or what wipes out an entire population of tree. So I would just put that as direction to board. Maybe we come back and encourage a regional municipal kind of policy where everyone can adopt, and we all understand that if you're taking it down, you're going to replace it, and with several. So I'd like to leave that with you, Chair, as maybe some direction to share with staff. Thank you.
All great comments. Thanks, Member Diodati. Member Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our staff for the presentation. Congratulations to Mickey on these pollinator gardens. They will be a living legacy and something that all 12 municipalities and perhaps some region should follow. We've heard the comments of Mayor Joyner and Mayor Diodati. I think this is an initiative that is very reasonable, very easy to do, very beneficial, and I perhaps issue a challenge to all municipalities, including the region, to embark upon a policy, as Mayor Diodati has elaborated upon, and that we move forward with this initiative. It's one that we should all be proud of, and one that will have long-lasting effects for our insect population. Thank you.
Great comments, and I just wanted to highlight really quickly, I think this is a great example of staff and certainly the board going above and beyond its mandate to help our lower tier municipalities with great initiatives like this. So thank you again, Mickey, and thank you to all our board members, because I know individually, and I've had conversations with just about every mayor and CAO throughout our 12 municipalities, as well as Haldeman, and most of the programs originate from the lower tier level, and if we can lend resources and certainly support those initiatives, that's exactly what we're going to do. But again, I value your comments, Member Maloney, absolutely. Individual municipalities should take on that challenge, and they should be stewards, certainly of their own host municipalities. So thank you again for the presenters, and we look forward to the next presentation in the next municipality that decides to partner with us and utilize some of our resources. So thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Deanna. Okay, seeing no other delegations, we will move on to business. The approval of minutes of the full authority meeting held May 17th, 2017. Can I get a mover to put those on the floor, please? Moved by Member Beatty, seconded by Member Kaspersets. Those minutes are on the floor for additions, deletions, revisions. Any questions or comments to those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question to accept and approve those full authority board meetings of May 17th. All those in favor? Opposed? And those meetings are accepted. The next set of minutes, I will need a mover to put those on the floor, are the special board meeting held June 22nd, 2017. Later on, I will be speaking to this under my chair's comments. It was a great occasion and was a great board meeting, and I want to elaborate on that board meeting later on in the meeting. But right now, I will put those minutes on the floor. I need a mover. Moved by Member Shurton, seconded by Member Timms. Those minutes are on the floor for questions or comments. Member Quirk. No, we're with special board meeting. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting those special board meeting minutes? Opposed? And those are carried as well. So the next item is the approval of committee minutes and recommendations contained therein as follows. The Code of Conduct Review Committee meeting held June 9th, 2017. Can I get a mover to put those on the floor for question or comments? Member Kasperstedt, second by Member Beatty. Those minutes are on the floor for question or comments. Member Beatty.
I would move referral of the minutes back to committee. It needs a little more work.
Okay, there is a referral motion on the floor. I need a seconder for that. Seconded by Member Timms. There is no questions or comments, but I will charge the board as chair. Is there anything with respect to those minutes or that report coming forward, Member Beatty, as the mover of the referral, that can't be discussed or amended or approved at this particular meeting? Or do you feel there's value in sending it back?
You talking to me?
Yes.
There absolutely is great value in sending it back.
Okay. There's nothing that can be discussed here or alleviate some of your concerns at this board meeting?
It needs to go back, please.
All right, I have a referral motion on the floor. All those in favor of accepting the referral?
Sorry, Chair, I know we don't speak to referral motions except for timing.
Okay.
Is there an indication that this is going to be done in time for our next board meeting?
I will ask the mover, do you have a specific time? Line Member Beatty?
I can do it during July for the July meeting. I don't think it'll take much, but even if it's August or September, this is one we have to get right.
Okay. So, it's your question of timing?
No, that's fine. I'm happy to refer it back to committee. Ideally, it would have been nice for Member Beatty to provide us some issues of his concerns. Now I feel I have to attend that meeting to find out exactly what the concerns are.
Okay. So I know once we adopted it as a committee, I made, I believe, the recommendation to dissolve the board because I thought our work was done. So the preamble is quite simple. Those members that were on the committee, I'm going to ask you to stay a part of the process going forward. We will be sending out an invitation to reconvene that board meeting, and hopefully we can get full attendance. Member Beatty, to the referral, as far as the timing?
As far as the timing, but you're asking them to stay on because it was going to be dispersed. It isn't. It's part of that motion, and since that motion isn't coming forward, the committee still exists.
Correct. Correct. But, okay. I have a referral motion on the floor. All those in favor of referring it to a July, hopefully a July or August meeting with respect to timing, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, our next order of business. Audit committee? Yeah, okay. So I will need a mover to put the audit committee meeting minutes on the floor. Moved by Member Dart, seconded by Member Quirk. Audit committee meeting held June 12, 2017. Any questions or comments, revisions, additions, any questions from or concerns from members of the board? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And the recommendation is that the audit committee recommend the draft RFP to the full authority board for approval. Okay. Resolution number FA 13117, that the full authority board approve the draft RFP for external audit services as recommended by the audit committee. Can I get a mover for that, please? Member Diodati, seconded by Member Joyner. That resolution is on the floor for questions or comments. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is approved as well. Our next committee meeting is our budget committee that was held June 12, 2017. I'll need a mover to put those on the floor, please. Member Beatty, seconded by Member Timms. We have one resolution moved that the full authority board approve a 2% total levy increase as budget guidance for 2018, which equates to approximately 1.6% budget increase as guidance. Questions or comments? Member Quirk.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak to this 2% guidance. The region's Budget Review Committee of the Whole did not maintain quorum long enough to give direction from the regional level. However, I just wanted to point out that the regional budget presentation is projecting a 1% growth in new assessment. In fact, the presentation indicated there could be as much as 1.5% increase in growth, which it's not captured in here. We also know that Hamilton is also experiencing growth in excess of 2%. So for all intents and purposes, if we can maintain this 2% on the levy, overall, we will be sharing a per taxpayer reduction with our funding municipalities. So we'll follow up with that and keep on top of that as we go through the budget process. But I wanted to thank staff for providing us with some great information on the budget pressures they are looking at right now.
Any other question or comments with respect to that resolution? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried as well. Our last item of business with respect to our subcommittees was our Strategic Planning Committee meeting held June 12, 2017. Out of that comes a resolution. I'll need a mover for that. That the full authority board receive the minutes for information. Member Dart, seconded by Member Beatty. Question or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried as well. Again, I think it's clear to see that we have been quite busy just with respect to Audit Committee, Budget Committee, and Strategic Planning Committee. Some important business has been taken care of. So thank you, Board, for your cooperation. And thank you for your time and efforts, because I understand not only do you have commitments with respect to your regional and municipal schedules, but you have commitments with respect to the NPCA, and now you volunteered to sit on these subcommittees as well. So I understand the time commitment involved, and I just want to thank you all for your participation in conducting the important business of the authority. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we will move on to the chair's remarks. It has been a very busy time since the last update, and pull up my notes here. So again, we still have yet to receive any word from the Auditor General. I'm assuming that with Bill 139, she is looking for language to see whether or not her portfolio is going to be expanded. But again, we have not received any word from the Auditor General. So again, congratulations to Mickey and the great initiatives that staff has undertaken to partner with our lower tier municipalities. Pollinator Gardens, incredible initiative, and we're going to be continuing those dialogues with our municipal partners just to see who else wants to get involved, Mickey. So thank you for your involvement as well. Living Landscape open houses, those have been very, very well received. Thank you to Member Timms for expanding the public consultation process to include St. Catharines. That was ratified. But there is one piece of business that I will be bringing forward. And as per regulation, and I'll look to staff for direction here, the resolution that was received in April 26th put a date on the public consultation process to provide comments by June 30th, 2017. Now, I have heard back from a whole host of our partners in the community, and I think it's more appropriate to push that date back to September. So understanding that we have a resolution that says that the public be requested to provide comments by June 30th, 2017, and I understand through staff that they are more than amenable to push that commenting period back to September. I'm wondering if we need a formalized resolution in order to accommodate that date change, because it is part of the actual resolution that was moved by Member Shurton and seconded by Member Dart in April of April 26th. So maybe look for staff direction on that one. I'll be more than happy to make that motion at the appropriate time as well. Member Shurton?
I'm assuming you're just looking to extend the date for more helpful comments?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want a little more, but you have received a fair bit of input from
Correct.
Community? Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And maybe I'll get Suzanne to speak to that.
There we go. Okay.
So as far as the deadline goes, September is fine from a staff perspective. We've been meeting with our municipalities throughout this process, and we heard the same thing from them, saying they need more time. Through the Niagara area planners, what they committed to was giving us some staff comments by the end of June, giving us a chance to have a look at those and have some more dialogue over the summertime in anticipation of municipal reports going forward in September, early September. So September 15th, I think, was a date we had talked about, and that works well from a staff perspective.
Thank you for those comments. And just, I'm going to open it up. I'll probably will formalize that just because I want to be very transparent in the sense that it is part of the motion that comments be received by June 30th. I will probably be formalizing a resolution to push that date back to September 15th. I just don't know the mechanism if it requires a reconsideration or not, because the date is part of the original motion that was passed. So I'll be bringing that forward maybe under new business and we can discuss it then. But getting back to my comments, the Hamilton appeal, thank you to Member Timms, Member Beatty for your participation. I know staff was there as well. We will be hearing a decision relatively shortly. From what I understand, I did attend one day in Toronto at the Lands and Mines hearing, and maybe our CEO during his comments could elaborate a little bit more, but I understand that a decision will be coming shortly. CLAC, we welcomed our new partner, Derek Pont from Métis Niagara. Now we thank all those members that have served their respective two-year term, and we are excited to introduce new members to the CLAC, and we look forward to working with those new members in sector representation with the NPCA. So going forward, we will be re-engaging those sector partners through our CLAC committee. As you all know, Bill 139 was introduced first reading in the House. Within that omnibus bill, there are many changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. We are absolutely thrilled as a staff and certainly as a board to accept those recommendations. We see a lot of congruency with respect to what the province has suggested Conservation Authorities move towards and what we have already adopted. So we're excited about that. Code of Conduct Steering Committee, thank you for your work on that one. The Code of Conduct, as just passed, will go back to that committee and we'll make sure we get it right. Thank you to Member Beatty for making sure that this committee stays on top of those issues and comes back with a very thorough and robust code of conduct. Our CEO Search Committee steering team, thank you for your involvement in that process. It was a long process. It took an incredible amount of staff resources and commitment from this board and certainly the subcommittee to make sure that we got it right. The gentleman to my right will probably have more to say to that, but on behalf of the board, we did find one successful candidate that checked off all the boxes, and I couldn't be more happy or thrilled to have Mark Brickell assume that role. So Mark, congratulations. It was a very thorough process, and I always say the cream rises to the top. So welcome aboard, and we're excited to have you. So Mark and myself had the opportunity to attend Conservation Ontario on Monday, and ministry resources were there to answer questions with respect to Bill 139. But of particular importance, I wanted to share this with the board, and I did send out this document here. So hopefully all the board got that document. That's the latest missive from the province, from MNRF, with respect to the changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. You were sent, board members were sent that in PDF. By all means, please share it with your CAOs and your municipal councils. It's a very well-worded document that provides great context as far as what the mandate of conservation authorities are, what the province envisions our role as being, and any new changes that will be coming. Of particular interest, I did ask some pointed questions with respect to wetland conservation updates. They weren't as forthcoming as I liked, but I did press them on the issue, and probably within the next couple of months, MNRF will be proposing new regulations on wetland conservation, with what I understood from the answers would include an updated OES, which is the Ontario Wetland Evaluation Scoring System, what the provincial mandated role will be, Now, of specific importance, and I think this is very, very important, the specific scope of roles and responsibilities assigned to conservation authorities in implementing the new proposed wetland conservation strategy could be consistent across all authorities, or it could differ from one conservation authority to another. Now, what's going to make that possible, and it's going to be dependent on factors such as capacity of an authority to deliver additional programs, or the rate of wetland loss in a conservation authority's jurisdiction. Now, I suggested that those metrics were rather subjective, but I'm hoping that the province will tighten those down. Now, determining those things, I think the focus was Southern Ontario. And the province originally put forward a proposal in their white paper asking for a net gain approach. So, as you recall, in the early part of 2016, the province released that discussion paper on wetland conservation, and as you recall, the MNRF put forward the position of no net loss. It was a 1-to-1 ratio. You may also recall that in May of 2016, this board engaged the services of Keeling Management to advocate our position to the province that a 1-to-1 ratio was not appropriate, and that we were asking for a 3-to-1 ratio here in Niagara. Because of the historical loss of wetlands, we thought 3-to-1 was more appropriate. So in 2 months' time, we will know whether or not our comments were accepted and we were successful in our advocacy efforts in convincing the ministry that a one-size-fits-all approach wasn't necessarily in the interest of Niagara, and we needed more tools in the toolbox to manage wetland conservation more effectively in Niagara. So I look forward in the next 2 months to that report coming forward. Hopefully they will consider what the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority has been advocating with the help of this board, that a 1-to-1 no net loss approach isn't acceptable. We want more wetlands. We want a 3-to-1 ratio. So I'm looking forward to the report coming forward by the province. Again, at that meeting, and this is something I will be bringing forward to the board, Conservation Ontario holds a biennial tour. Every 2 years they host a biennial tour. This year it's in October, it's in Halton Region. In 2019 it was for Credit Valley, and there was 2 conservation authorities that were going to host. I approached both the CEOs of those conservation authorities with the hopes that they would back down and possibly allow the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority to be the host in 2019. It is our 60th anniversary. There's a lot of great things happening. Hey, Kat, come on in Niagara. So those meetings were very, very successful. Both those CEOs from those conservation authorities absolutely said they would step aside and let the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority host the 2019 biennial. But again, I've left it with staff to come back with some numbers, to come back with some costing, to come back with some firm metrics to make the decision whether or not we want to take part and be the host of the 2019 Conservation Ontario Biennial Tour. So again, that report should be coming hopefully at the next board meeting, and the board can make a very thoughtful, conscientious decision whether or not we want to invite our 36 Conservation Authority partners to Niagara and showcase what we have down here. And the general feedback I got, it was very, 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 they were all excited to come down to Niagara. Member Quirk? Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay. So as we've done over the course of the last 3 or 4 months, we are doing a lot of reach out to our lower tier municipalities, and certainly we're very, very excited about the potential of our MOUs being developed with our partners. So again, we're having discussions with DSBN to hopefully establish a more robust memorandum of understanding and hopefully create some outdoor learning space. I'm excited about that one. Hopefully we finalize that one moving forward. We had a great conversation with our partners at Bench Brewery with respect to Balls Falls IPA, and hopefully we will be establishing a new MOU with them moving forward, and possibly proceeds of Balls Falls IPA, a small percentage going to the Conservation Authority Foundation. And I had a great opportunity to attend Winklemolen Farms. And Winklemolen Farms is just an incredible operation, and it's a nursery, and roughly they produce about 2 million trees a year. They were the #1 nursery in all of the world, I think 3 years ago. I think they've been a top 3 or 4 placer since then. But incredible operations, and we hopefully will be establishing a partnership with them moving forward as well with respect to our comfort maple tree. So I wanted to enlighten the board as far as a lot of great things that we're working towards behind the scenes to certainly further our mandate and looking outside our mandate, what partnerships that we can develop. So I'll leave it up to the board for questions or comments with respect to my comment. Let's start here. Mickey?
We hosted, I forget what year it was.
We did, yeah.
Part of that was very interesting. They took us to Niagara Falls, and they took us out on the dam, you know, the one, the ice, what do they call that? They put up for the ice during the winter.
Yeah.
And the other one was, they took us to the Hamilton Harbor at night, a tour of on a tugboat, tour there. And I think it was Ontario Construction. They have a big quarry in Halton somewhere. Mm-hmm. And they took us to there, and the quarry was being rehabilitated, and they done a wonderful job there.
Great comment. So we did host.
So I'm looking forward to that tour.
Well, hopefully it works out. We did host, I don't know the exact year we hosted it, but we did partner with Hamilton Conservation Authority. Whether or not there's a partnership in the works between us and Hamilton again this year, we'll certainly investigate that opportunity. But again, showcasing what we have in Niagara, I think it's a great opportunity to invite our partners from our 36 Conservation Authority partners down here. Question or comments moving down the line? Member Quirk?
Thank you, Chair. With respect to the biannual tour, I hope that the other CAs would recognize our 60th anniversary and make sure that we can host it. I would also encourage any members here, I know Lisa sent out the invite for that to put in our calendar, but I think any members, if we can go there with a large contingent of our membership to that biannual tour, I think for 2 reasons: to see what the other CAs are doing and with a more hands-on approach, and secondly, because I think it'll show our interest in hosting it and get some ideas of what we can do to showcase the Niagara Peninsula watershed with our 3 partnering municipalities.
Great comments. Member Joyner.
Just real quickly, Mr. Chair, I want to say, and I can't remember the name of the company that did this, but I want to say thank you to them, whoever produced the video on the Comfort Maple. I know I've tweeted it out, and it's been retweeted out many times over, so it was a very good video, and I want to thank that company and the NPCA for bringing light to the Comfort Maple.
Okay. Great comments. Yeah, it's one of our treasures here in Niagara, so we're very, very appreciative of the Comfort Maple and what it stands for. So to Member Quirk's comments, absolutely, I invite all members to take part in the October biennial in Halton region this year. I did leave it with the Conservation Authority Chair that we will be sending him our response shortly, and hopefully he says he'd love to make an announcement that the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority will be hosting for 2019. So again, that report will be going to this board, and you can make a very thoughtful decision whether or not we move forward with that initiative. Any other questions or comments with respect to my chair remarks? Member Timms.
Good work on a very busy month, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the participation in Conservation Ontario and the biennial meetings. They are, I think, very helpful to broaden our whole perspective of the conservation authorities across the province. So thank you for continuing and obviously putting a great deal of effort into this role. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Member Beatty. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I look forward to this concept of hosting this conference here in Niagara. I had chaired up the study tour organization for the FCM conference, and we'd be very happy to assist in terms of any planning that we're doing, and I would ask Lisa to put me down on the list in terms of going to the Halton event.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I will turn the speaker over to our newest CAO for his comments. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, board members, for the confidence you've placed in me. I am humbled, no question. I think this is a wonderful organization that does really important work. and we have a great staff. We're blessed to have a great board, and we do really great work. And I can assure you the best is still to come. So I look forward to working closely with all of you, with all of your municipalities, and making sure that all the good work continues. You heard from in the chair's remarks, and you can see it by the agenda, there's a lot going on in the Conservation Authority right now, a lot of really good work. I could comment on that quite at length, though I appreciated the generous time you gave me last meeting, so I'll try to keep my comments fairly brief. Suzanne, I would just ask to introduce a new staff member. If you could do that, Suzanne.
Sure, thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce to the board our new RAP project manager for the Niagara River. This is Natalie Green. She's recently joined us full-time. She's moved her family back here to Ontario, and we're really excited to have her here at the NPCA because we were thinking, my goodness, it's going to be tough to fill that role of the project manager, who's had experience in a binational setting working on a remedial action plan. And we found her. Natalie was the project manager for the Detroit River Remedial Action Plan for 6 years, and she has a very strong educational background as well. She has a master's degree in biology from Laurentian University and 2 undergrad degrees, one in biology and one in education from Nipissing University. So welcome, Natalie, and if you'd like to say a few words, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to work with the NPCA and to work with all of you in this exciting project in protecting and restoring the Niagara River. I'm very excited to be working on this project. So I'll be coming to you shortly, I'm sure, with some reports and probably some interesting results. So I look forward to those opportunities. Thank you so much for having me.
So the first time I met Natalie, she was coming from Florida, I remember. And I think it was snowing that day, wasn't it, Natalie? I'm not sure. But on behalf of the board, to you and your family, welcome. Welcome back to Niagara.
Thank you, Natalie. I've had the pleasure to sit down with Natalie, and I can assure you she's going to be a real joy to work with. I hope that all of you could take time to get to know her. But we welcome her aboard and know that she's going to do really great work. Invitation to attend our Canada Day celebration, our party in the park at Binbrook Conservation Area. That's taking place this Saturday from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. An opportunity to celebrate Canada's 150th birthday and also to officially open the brand new splash pad, which, as you will recall, we got funding through the Canada 150 program to support that initiative. So the splash pad's up and running, it's been tested, it's working, it looks great. It's going to be a really great party in the park, family themed, with lots of water activities, music and entertainment. It's going to be a great day, so I hope to see some of you there. A few details on the Hamilton Levy appeal hearing that was held at the end of May. Parties did agree to provide written submissions. Hamilton had to have their comments in by June 23rd. They did so. Niagara, Haldeman, and NPCA have until June 30th to respond, and then July 5th has been set aside for any questions from the commissioner. We hope to have a decision by September, is what we would expect. Want to thank staff for going out to Smith Ness and planting 80 trees out there in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Niagara Falls Nature Club. That was a greatly appreciated effort, and I know that the Niagara Falls Nature Club really appreciated that undertaking. Those trees were made available to them at the Volunteer Achievement Awards program, and I know that group really did appreciate it and undertook the work to plant those trees. I think those are all the comments I need to make right now, and we can continue on.
Thank you, Mark, for those comments. Moving on then, the next order on the agenda is reports for information. Our first one, financial and reserves, month ending May 31st, 2017. That's report number 6117. Can I get a mover for that one, please? Moved by member Quirk, seconded by member Diodati. That report is on the floor for questions or comments. All those in favor of accepting? Opposed? And that report is accepted for information. Our next one is Binbrook Splash Pad in Canada 150 update. And we're going to invite Adam Christie to come forward and give us a presentation on that. Is Adam? Adam, hi Adam.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Yeah, so I'd like to start out with just a quick little promo video that kind of shows the vision for we kind of have the event. If you don't mind pressing play there, Nate, that'd be much appreciated. Yeah, so that's kind of the vision we have for the event, and I'm going to go into a little more detail here. So our entertainment lineup, we got the Figure 4, we got the Riot, Vinyl Flux, and Flat Baroque, and our headlining band, the Practically Hip, which is we thought was really important to kind of symbolize Canada and the patriotism, especially everything that's going on with that band right now. We thought it would be a big draw, so that's kind of our headline me in the afternoon. We have stage, where we got the stage set up, we feel like it's a perfect place that kind of everybody at the event, whether you're in the lake, whether you're in the beach, whether you're at the food trucks, wherever, you'll be able to hear and see the band. So we think it's a real cool setup. We do want to create a party atmosphere, but we do want to make this a family day as well. So we do have some children's entertainment. Again, we have our Alicia's company is going to be helping us out do Rapunzel and Pascal during the day from 1 to 3, doing a little meet and greet, maybe a little sing-along, and I'm sure some photos. We will have some bouncy castles. These are the actual exact bouncy castles we have for the events. We got one bouncy castle and a slide, and then obviously the main draw and the reason we're having the event is the actual new splash pad, which is running and looks really cool. Keep with the family theme, we're going to do a sandcastle building competition. Our vision is we want to see people on this beach, so we're going to have a competition, and our NPCA staff will judge by the end of the day. Got some nice prizes to give out to them. We're going to have a moms to moms swap and sell. Again, the theme, trying to get more families out to the event. Our NPCA staff is actually collecting some items as well to be able to contribute to the moms to moms sell. We've been in talks with Border Pass and been able to put together something for them for the day. So they're actually going to be giving live demonstrations, professional demonstrations. They got their own microphone, they got their own mic, so they're going to be actually explaining what's going on while they're doing it at certain times of the day, which will help them out and actually be a cool draw for the event, I think. At the end, we're going to go with an outdoor movie. We're going to use our outdoor screen and projector and play the movie Sing, which again we think goes with the theme of the day of live entertainment, and also again the family atmosphere, a kind of movie that everybody can enjoy. So hopefully probably gets dark around 9:30, and we'll try to fire that thing up at 9:40ish. So we're going to have food trucks for the event. This was a big challenge for us because of all the events going on Canada Day, being able to find some food trucks to come to a new event that we couldn't guarantee a lot. But we got True North Barbecue. We're excited to have them on, and they're going to be doing some brisket on a bun, some pulled pork, smoked chicken, and tacos, and some fresh cut fries, and some hot dogs for the kids. We got the Brewing Bean, which is a coffee company that's going to be doing iced coffee and some fun drinks as well. And then we got Mr. Ice Cream, which shocking is going to be doing ice cream and desserts. Beverages. For this event, we went to and partnered with Molson. So we're going to be doing Molson Canadian. Again, goes with the theme of the day of being Canada 150, Molson Cider and Coors Light. And they're going to be helping us out. They're providing us with a 10 by 10 tent, some swag for our staff, banners, signage, promotional material to give away, like some hats, t-shirts, cooler bags to the adults. So we're excited about that. We do have camping going on as well, so another revenue stream for us for the day. We got a bunch booked actually already, so we're hoping to fill that up as well, allow the people and guests to stay over. This is a look of our event schedule for the day. You see how the bands are laid out. We do have Councillor Brenda Johnson and MPP David Sweet saying stuff throughout the day because they were obviously very instrumental in getting the funding for the splash pad, so they're part of that event schedule as well. This is our event layout for the event. So again, this is what really excited us, is we wanted to create an event where it was right by the water. So everybody doing all the activities of the day can see the stage, hear the bands, see the movie, and not being too tight. But we feel like that's a perfect layout for the event. Let's talk a little about our marketing plan. Our communications team was nice enough to put together some creative for us. This is kind of the theme of the event that we've been putting out. So they've been very heavy on social media promoting the event, and we've got a lot of good feedback on it, so we're pretty excited. Radio promotions, we have 94.7. They're going to be actually on site doing all their stuff, on-air giveaways and traffic plugs and whatnot. And also we've been promoting through 92.9 The Grand. So this is kind of our target audience. This is what we're looking for people to come. We're looking for residents within a 25K radius, obviously the local community in Binbrook and surrounding area, and then also hopefully to get some from Niagara for our social media followers. We know there's risks. There's risks in every event, but we feel like we have our bases covered, especially when we're serving alcohol. We got a lake to worry about. We have weather to worry about. But again, we feel like we've gone through everything. And we have all our ducks in order. We got roaming lifeguards and a lot of other things in place to limit the risks for the event. And lastly, we also know we have a lot of competing events that day. It's Canada Day, it's Canada 150. A lot of events are free around it, but we feel really positive about our event. We feel like it's going to be 27 degrees, feel like 35, and we got a beautiful property, a beach, and a lake, and a lot of great entertainment and a lot of fun activities. So we feel we got something that a lot of these events don't have. So we feel really strongly about it. So we welcome everybody to come, and thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thanks, Adam. Adam, yeah, just stay up there because I'm sure members have questions or comments. Member Shurton.
Yeah, thanks, Adam, and nice presentation. With Haldeman being so close to Binbrook, have you reached out to Haldeman and make them aware maybe they can do a little media promoting for you?
We have not, no, but that's something we could certainly look into.
Yeah, I don't think it'll hurt. I know they got the Facebook page and Twitter, so that could be an option to throw.
We are on the City of Hamilton stuff, but that specifically
yeah.
we could look into as well.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
I'm just saying that we're right next door there, so it might be I
call.
do know those Caledonia and Dunwell got things going on, but I like what's all going on today, and I'm hoping to get out there for part of it.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Any other questions or comments? Yeah. Member Timms?
Just a comment that I do like the presentation of the media campaign, but more impressed with the list of risk and competition assessment. It tells me that you've had a really good look at all the possibilities and the various, the competition in terms of who you're working with, and particularly the list of risk in the park for putting together this kind of event. So I'm left with the impression that it's very well planned and been very thoroughly thought out, so I have great confidence in the success.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for the good work.
Thanks.
Any other members? Member Maloney.
What is our budget for the day? and what are possible sources of to offset that budget?
Yeah, so our budget for the day is 15,000, and you know, our working budget has us with a slight increase. We're trying to at least break even, and always the goal is to increase our revenues. So we're hoping for, we're not expecting huge, but the goal would be 20 grand. So 5 grand in revenue.
Okay, so just what would be our revenue sources though? Is it,
Oh, sorry.
Is it,
Yeah.
Is it food sales, alcohol sales?
Yeah, I got it right here. So obviously admission, that's the big one. We're doing the beer, all the beverages, so food and beverage, the vendors, and as well as camping, rental pavilions, boat rentals, everything we can do that day.
Okay.
That's the main ones.
Member Maloney, is that good? Good, good. The comments I keep hearing are there's a lot of people in the Hamilton area, certainly even in that neighborhood, that don't even know Binbrook exists. So hoping this will be that great launch to maybe spread awareness and you know, make sure that our parks are utilized to their full extent going forward. So seeing no other questions, Mark, did you want to have a quick word?
Yes, I think this is your first exposure to Adam presenting to the board. Just wanted to make members aware that the strategic initiatives team that he runs, their revenues are actually up year to date by more than $80,000 at this point. They've done really phenomenal work. I think the event they put together, that's on a really low budget. The other revenue source for it is, of course, we weren't able to do the ice fishing derby, so therefore the 5,000 of the 7,000 that was set aside for that has been moved over to this project. But I think they put together a really awesome event. I hope that there's great turnout. I mean, that's a good day at Binbrook, and sure hope the attendance matches the effort that's been put into it. But I would thank Adam and his team for really doing an excellent job in preparing for this one.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We do too.
Great. Thanks, thanks, Adam, for the presentation. I'm going to need a mover to accept the report for information. Moved by Member Sheridan, seconded by Member Beatty. All those in favor of accepting the presentation? Opposed? Thanks, Adam. Our next item on the agenda is Binbrook Reservoir Lake Niepenko Dissolved Oxygen Update, report number 6317. Can I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Member Diodati, seconded by Member Timms. Question or comments to that report? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the report for information? Opposed? And that report is accepted. Our next item on the agenda, Annual Water Quality Report, report number 6417. We have a presentation. Come on forward, Mr. Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the NPCA board. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to provide an overview of the 2017 Water Quality Report. As a quick review, the NPCA Water Quality Monitoring Program was implemented in 2001. The mandate of the program is twofold. One, to assess the water quality of local watersheds. To accomplish this, the NPCA has 74 surface water quality monitoring stations where we collect chemistry and biological samples. The NPCA also has 15 groundwater wells where water levels and water chemistry are monitored. Since 2001, the NPCA has collected approximately 7,000 surface water samples and 250 groundwater samples through this program. It's one of the most comprehensive water quality sampling and analysis programs within the NPCA jurisdiction. The second component of our mandate is to report the water quality information to our stakeholders. We do that through annual reporting, such as I'm doing now, watershed report cards, and special studies, which are distributed to our stakeholders and the public. The NPCA collects its samples during the ice-free season, March to December typically, and analyzes for a whole suite of water quality parameters. This table shows a list of the key parameters that the NPCA uses for our analysis. These parameters have ecological threshold values, provincial water quality objectives, Canadian water quality guidelines, and these parameters are sensitive both to rural and urban land uses, and they're commonly used by other conservation authorities and other agencies. For data analysis, we have taken the water quality data for each station and summarized it with the Canadian Water Quality Index. The Canadian Water Quality Index was developed by Environment Canada as a tool to transform water quality data into understandable descriptions. Water quality is classified as excellent, good, fair, marginal, poor based on 3 criteria. These criteria include the number of parameters not meeting the water quality guideline or objective, the number of times the objective or guidelines are not met, and the extent or magnitude to which that objective or guideline is exceeded. So when we apply this tool to the NPCA surface water data, we find, based on the results from 2012 to 2016, which is in the report, 64% of the NPCA surface water monitoring stations are rated as poor, the red dots on that map. 23 are rated as marginal, the yellow dots. 10% are rated as fair, the green dots, and 3% are rated as good, the blue dots. None of the stations achieved the water quality index rating of excellent. The highest water quality ratings in the NPCA watershed are the Effingham tributary of the upper 12 Mile Creek watershed in Pelham, the lower section of 12 Mile Creek in Port Dalhousie, the Welland Canal, Point Abino Drain in Fort Erie, Beaver Creek in Fort Erie, the Welland River downstream of Binbrook Conservation Area, and Frenchman's Creek in Fort Erie. Generally, the water quality ratings at our stations are relatively stable when we compare those to historic data sets. The NPCA also monitors the groundwater. We have 15 monitoring wells that we monitor with the Provincial Groundwater Monitoring Network. We monitor continuous water levels and temperatures, which are collected with data loggers that are deployed in the well. The water quality within the wells mostly meets the Ontario drinking water standards. There are some exceedances of boron, fluoride, and sodium, which are attributed to natural conditions of the groundwater. We have found nitrate exceedances in 2 of our wells, which are attributed to land use activities in the vicinity of the monitoring well. Those were investigated by the NPCA, Public Health, and the MOECC, the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change, to determine these nitrate exceedances were just specific to those wells only. So some good news. This figure shows total phosphorus concentrations observed at the long-term monitoring station in Beaver Creek, which is located in West Lincoln, from 2003 to 2016. The red line on that figure shows the provincial water quality objective for total phosphorus. And as total phosphorus data became available for Beaver Creek, it became clear that this watershed had a phosphorus issue. You can see most of those dots are way above the provincial water quality objective. 2009, the NPCA stewardship program specifically targeted this watershed for water quality improvement projects. When we conducted a trend analysis, which is that line essentially, the green line, dashed line, with the long-term total phosphorus data, we observed a statistically significant decrease in total phosphorus concentrations. It represents approximately 14% decrease in total phosphorus in this watershed. This map shows 23 stewardship projects in the Beaver Creek watershed complex. These include manure storages, reforestation, stream riparian buffer, cattle fencing, and wetland projects. It's reasonable to conclude that this total phosphorus decrease is due in part to the focused restoration and stewardship initiatives that we are doing. Another story I would like to talk to you about is Lake Nyapanko. Since 2002, the NPCA has been monitoring the Welland River entering and leaving Lake Nyapanko, Binbrook Conservation Area. Over time, the NPCA has found the water quality improves as water moves through Lake Nyapanko. Specifically, there are significant decreases in total phosphorus and E. coli concentrations. And you can see that in those 2 figures on the top, total phosphorus on the top left and total phosphorus on the right. The left being the input, the green, and the output being purple. As water moves through Lake Nyapanko, total phosphorus and E. coli concentrations are reduced through settling out of particulate matter and by biological processes of plants and microorganisms. This decrease highlights the water quality benefits of plantings and habitat improvement projects by the NPCA and the Glen Conservation Committee in Binbrook Conservation Area over this time. Andy Feve has told me they've planted approximately 30,000 aquatic plants during this time. And that map of Binbrook kind of shows the dots where all the planting projects are. So it's not very well seen, but there's a lot of dots on there and a lot of hard work. Another story I'd like to tell you about is the 2 Mile Creek E. coli trackdown. The NPCA's water quality monitoring program has identified unusually high concentrations of E. coli in 2 Mile Creek and Niagara-on-the-Lake. This figure that you see shows the median or average E. coli concentrations of all NPCA monitoring stations, so all 74 of our monitoring stations from 2012 to 2016. That red line represents the provincial water quality objective. The arrow that you can see there, or the CN Tower as I like to call it, is the concentrations of E. coli in 2 Mile Creek. The NPCA, based on this figure, initiated an investigation of 2 Mile Creek Conservation Area, which is just upstream of our sampling site on Lakeshore Road, and identified water discharging from a storm sewer as the source of elevated E. coli concentrations in the creek. It is suspected that the storm sewer is cross-connected with a sanitary sewer and that this is the source of the E. coli contamination. Information was shared with the municipality, and they are currently working to identify and remove this source of pollution. And one final story I'd like to share is DQ, the blue-green algae bloom last year. In the summer of 2016, the Niagara region detected the presence of blue-green algae in very small quantities upstream of the water treatment plant intake at DQ in St. Catharines. Blue-green algae occurs naturally during periods of prolonged hot weather in lakes, ponds, and rivers. And as you all remember, last year was a very, very hot and dry. These algae have the potential to produce toxins and make people sick. At the time of this bloom, the Niagara region called the NPCA and requested assistance. The NPCA was able to provide several resources such as boat, sampling equipment, and field technicians. The results from the sample collected during this time determined there was no toxins in the water. This highlights the flexibility of the NPCA's water quality program, staff, and resources to address emerging issues. And finally, I just wanted to highlight the data collected through the NPCA water quality monitoring program is very robust, and it's used by other agencies. We get about 50 data requests each year for our data. We have the Ministry of the Environment using our data for their 5-year reporting. The Niagara River AOC's used for the remedial action plan, has used our data over and over again. We have consultants calling us for data for environmental assessments. I have academics from universities asking for data, background data, and data to do research on. And of course, we have the public asking for their data to learn more about their watersheds. Thank you for your attention. I'd just like to acknowledge my colleagues who do a lot of the heavy lifting out in the field, Eric Augustino, water quality technician, and Ryan Kitchen, the water resource technician. And of course, our key partners. Without them, the agencies, we would not be where we are right now. So thank you.
Thanks, Josh, and on behalf of the board, please extend our grateful thanks to Eric and Ryan. I'm going to leave it up, open it up to board member questions of Josh. Member Timms.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Josh, that's an excellent presentation that I would like to see presented to St. Catharines City Council. Mr. Chairman, in response to our constant, or 4 different motions that St. Catharines wasn't sure whether we met our mandate on what they were getting for our money, for St. Catharines money. This presentation makes a very clear point of what is being done by the Conservation Authority that I'm sure City Council has no idea, and the general public does not aware of this contribution. So I would like to ask that this presentation, that this board or whatever the appropriate venue is, that we ask for an opportunity to present this to St. Catharines City Council. As I think in the last couple of slides about the DQ water stations, or the DQ Falls station, they are very appropriate, and it is overdue to bring the St. Catharines City Council up to speed on what exactly the Conservation Authority does for the population of St. Catharines. So I'd ask you how that might be arranged, and perhaps we can work that out in the next few weeks. Thank you.
All right, so great comments, Member Timms, and again, that's the exact kind of commitment that all our board members have been and certainly displaying on a regular basis, making sure that they're the conduit between their host municipality and what we do at the NPCA level. So I'm going to leave that at staff direction. Obviously, as the best practice moving forward, as has been our practice, we have to accommodate staff time and resources. So if there's an opportunity, I'll leave that with our CAO to make sure that it doesn't impact the work that Josh and his team does on a regular basis, and if we can accommodate that presentation at St. Catharines, we'll certainly do that. So thank you for bringing that forward. Any other questions or comments? Member Dart and then Member Quirk.
Thank you, Chair. Just back to 2 Mile Creek and the call. Obviously, we got the CN Tower in Niagara on Lake here. Can you give me an update on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we've been meeting with the town regularly. The town is engaged looking at the Garrison Village area, and they've conducted some scoping of the actual the lines, sanitary and storm sewers out there. They've been smoking the lines to see where is the possible sources and possible cross connection. At this time, they haven't found a definitive source, but they've narrowed down a certain area. I would recommend that you check with Brett Ruck. He's leading that. Once they start going into the sanitary and onto the streets, that kind of leaves us out of it. I usually just stick to public land. So they're the ones pulling manhole covers and sampling. But some of the results they got from some of the storm sewers were quite high in terms of E. coli, and certainly sufficient enough to increase the number of or the concentration of E. coli that we're seeing in the creek. It was quite shocking, actually. So.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, just to Member Tim's comment, I think there must be an ability for our communications people to edit out on the YouTube clips Josh's presentation, and we can share that electronically for those local councillors who wish to educate themselves. Then can do that very effectively and efficiently by watching the video and presentations, because Josh's presentation was fantastic. My question would be, this map that you have with our sites, do we have this over time? Can we I've seen this 3 times since I've been on the board. How far back in time can we see like changes or problems over time? Is that doable? Is that a tool we can put on our website?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I can do that. How I do the data analysis is in blocks of 5 years. So it's a kind of a stepping. I take off the last year and then move it 5 years forward, just to get the big enough data. Certainly do that. And maybe do it in 5-year chunks or 3-year chunks to see if there's a change. They're pretty stable. There's a couple here and there that go up and down change, but for the most part, it's quite stable. So what you're seeing in that is kind of what's been going on for the last 10 years, probably. But I can certainly do that. That can be done.
Well, and it seems to me that certain weather events may have a play in that. Certainly some of the water quality near the mouth of the Lake Ontario, some of those creeks is probably affected by the high levels there where water's just not flowing out in some aspects. But I just think it might be a useful tool to show where we also have to further invest in our restoration projects to make sure that we do take care of the source water protection that we're mandated to do.
Member Beattie?
Yeah, first of all, to piggyback on Member Tim's comment, Hamilton would also like to know what they're getting for their levy. And I would ask staff to consider the budget presentation in January, that maybe we expand that, elaborate on it, and try to get the message across just what they're getting for that sum of money. The question I have, and I've seen this report, I think I've asked this question before, a lot of poor. Heck of a lot of poor. What would it take to get those poor dots up to 50% fair or better? Because we don't seem to be making any great headway in getting out of the poor zone.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. It's a complex answer.
I'm sure.
And there's I put the Beaver Creek example today to show you what focused restoration stewardship does in a watershed. And that is my best example of where we're able to show total phosphorus concentrations coming down, I believe in part because of our stewardship. In terms of bringing all those dots back up to different ratings, it's going to take more work of the same. We have to accept that there's lag times in terms of how long things take to repair themselves. We've had 100 years damaging this ecosystem. It's not going to clean up, especially in the rural areas of Niagara and Hamilton, where overnight there's lots of time we have to put in, and we have to change the land use in theory if we're going to go down to a complete change, but that's not going to happen. We got to be realistic. So setting goals to find some achievable some achievable target is what we should be focusing on in terms of water quality. If that makes sense. We have some good examples of that where we can knock phosphorus down by 14% over since 2009 with restoration efforts. So that was quite impressive.
But the quality of water outlined in this report across Niagara is poor.
Generally poor. Yeah, and that matches, like I didn't put it in context of southwestern Ontario, southern Ontario. We kind of match what our neighboring CAs would be based on our land use.
Maybe I should approach it from a different perspective. Is it possible to get it up to fair across the watershed?
I believe there are some low-hanging fruit that we could deal with and get concentrations down of different parameters. So that map I'm showing you underestimates how much work and data is in the analysis. You're talking lots of different parameters and so on. So, but yeah, I believe it's possible to get concentrations down in certain watersheds with some work. I don't know if it will change some of the ratings. It might change some of the ratings. It would be very site specific. Each of those dots are kind of like little people themselves. Every watershed has its own character. There's different land uses going on, different types of farming, different types of urban or rural. So depending on what's in that watershed and what changes can be made realistically, you might be able to make headway in those watersheds.
Mr. Chairman, I would refer it back to our staff to give some serious consideration to see if we can improve that. We go to the Great Lakes Joint Commission, and it seems to me that the quality of the Great Lakes is improving, and has improved over the last 25 fairly significantly. They got a long way to go, but it's improving. And I think back on the reports that I've seen with respect to the Niagara watershed, and I think we should put more effort into trying to, and more support to staff to try and improve the water quality. Poor is just ongoing. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Thanks, Member Beatty. Member Kaspersett, and then Member Beatty.
Thank you, Chair, for that. I also agree with Mr. Beatty. We've got some problems here. Just so everyone knows, I want to talk a little bit about PFAS. The Niagara watershed starts in Hamilton with that lake having a high concentration of PFAS. So my first question is, how far down are we still picking up levels of PFAS? Has it stopped moving? Is it isolated? Is it traveling farther down? Second question, are there not some remediation programs we could be doing, or is it more dangerous to remove it as opposed to letting it sit? Third question is, are there any health associated risks with kids swimming in this PFAS? That's also a concern. And I agree with Mr. Beatty. Our watershed is polluted. We know of a number of sites that are contributing to the pollution, and I don't know if there's a concentrated effort into going after those sites. And then I guess fourth is with the PFAS. I mean, not the PFAS, the phosphorus from our agricultural friends. Are there any programs where we're going out and trying to work with the farmers to establish proper buffers? Because when I drive through the Niagara region, and I hate it because I'm also a farmer, I see farmers applying their manure right up alongside the ditch line. And the first heavy rains like we've had in the last month and a half, it's all flowing. So I don't know if we're doing anything to work with our farmers to encourage them to put in a 20-meter buffer. So I think I've given you enough things to work on.
Yeah, if you can respond, absolutely. If not, then
yeah, we'll
make sure you get those answers back to Member Kaspersett. But go ahead, Josh. Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The PFAS issue, yes, there's PFAS in Lake Nyapanko. And we've taken our due diligence as an authority to monitor, take a sample every year to see what the concentration is inside the reservoir. And every late June, early July, so we're scheduled actually next week to go out there and collect that sample. We've been doing that. So yes, there is PFOS. The PFOS concentration is below Health Canada's guideline that's out there. So it is safe according to Health Canada. So and we monitor that, so we have that data. As far as I know about downstream effects, we don't monitor downstream. And I would assume if it's in Lake Nyapanko, it's moving through our reservoir and downstream in the Welland River. The extent, I'm not sure of. Sampling for PFOS is quite expensive, $500 to $700 per sample. So you certainly can, get a large. You need a large budget to start sampling kind of throughout our watershed. Now, as far as I know, the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change has sampled in the past to assess some level of the extent, but I believe they found it downstream of Bimbrook, but I'm not sure how far it goes downstream. And then your other question is, there is an environmental assessment being done on the PFOS issue outside of the Hamilton Airport property to assess what is the extent and what are the remediation options for that. Now, I'm not involved in that, so I'm not sure of all the details. I could try and find out and do that as staff direction, and that's not a problem. And then I believe your other question was farming and what kind of programs we have. So the Conservation Authority has a stewardship program, so we have cost sharing. And so some of the projects that I set up on my slide for Beaver Creek talked about manure storages, cattle fencing, buffer reforestation, wetlands. Our restoration and stewardship staff work with landowners and have a cost sharing program to do those types of projects to improve water quality. So that's what kind of exists at our authority for that kind of problem.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good questions, Member Kasprzak. Member Beatty.
Thank you, Chair. I'm encouraged by this report. Most reports we've had up until now have been at a much higher level, and they all come out poor. This is showing some possible solutions in some areas, and I think the story needs to be told. I agree with Councillor Timms in terms of some of the urban areas that aren't aware of the impact because it's downstream. In particular, the concern that I have is it's a question, first of all, of outreach. Staff time I know is precious, but I think that if there's meetings of the Federation of Agriculture, North and South, that the presentation in terms of the remediation that has happened in Beaver Creek area is a good story to tell and perhaps can be replicated in other areas if awareness were to increase. The question that I have for you is, this all deals with particulate matter, chemicals, etc. Do you also monitor water temperature? And my reason for asking this is, as you're aware, significant efforts have gone in with the East Pond Hill development, massive development, to have massive stormwater drainage ponds, supposedly to maintain the temperature of the 12 Mile Creek, which is our only cold water stream. Do we measure water temperature as well in that particular stream?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we have an extensive temperature monitoring program, and the larger, you have the Coles Notes version of the water quality, the annual water quality report in front of you, but when you go see or look at the more extensive report that we've done, there's a whole appendix dedicated to temperature monitoring in the upper 12 Mile Creek watershed. And we do that annually. We've been doing that since 2006. Generally, if I was to report on that, the Effingham tributaries, sort of the west part of the upper 12, are the coldest, and the St. John's are warmer. But the temperatures have been very stable. We haven't seen very many changes with the temperature to date. So, but we'll be keeping an eye, especially on the new developments that are going on in Pelham, and seeing how those do affect temperature. Last year was such a dry year, we were expecting significant changes, but the groundwater discharge at the moment seems to be moderating the temperatures that we're finding in the 12 Mile Creek and holding them at threshold values that are safe for brook trout, especially the Effingham tributary.
Okay, I would appreciate getting some more detailed information. and perhaps preparing a media release with regard to that, because the general perception is that the development is going to lessen the quality of that water temperature. And I'm aware of two major pond developments, actually from my work with the Escarpment Commission, on the 12 Mile Creek. And the question that I have there is also one of the methodology that's used to ensure that where the water leaves the pond, that it's not warmer than what the water was coming in. And I think there are means of like bottom drainage, et cetera, to accomplish that. So if we are doing the water quality temperature, I think that's good because of the pond development and the significant pond development in East Fawn Hill. So thank you for that.
Great questions, Member Beatty. Second time, Member Quirk.
Sorry, Chair, just I had a thought as well as you were talking there through you, Josh. Josh, that map, obviously those red dots, yellow dots, green and blue dots have a lot of data behind them. And so when you were talking there, you just emphasized the fact that all the work that we had done on the Beaver Creek restoration on the phosphorus, and yet the red dot is still a red dot at the peak there. So is it possible to look at these dots with each of the criteria? Like, is that a tool that you have, like we could look at phosphorus and maybe there might be some changes, and we could look at E. coli and see if there's changes? Because this, like you said, the red, yellow, green, and blue represents a lot of behind the scenes data, but with all the work that's been done on Beaver Creek, you would hope that you'd be able to do a deeper dive on that individual red dot.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we have those maps. They're actually in the bigger report. We've broken down every parameter that we look at. It was like 8 or 9 appendix, look at total phosphorus. I will say, with the Beaver Creek situation, so we did have total phosphorus levels decreasing, but they're still over the provincial water quality objective and quite high still, and so they would still be a red dot. But nonetheless, I just wanted to highlight that there is a decrease happening. And so, and even in that report, you'll find trend analysis on each of those parameters that we're looking at too. So,
through you, Chair. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Josh, for answering the questions and sticking around. I'm going to move this as staff direction that I'm going to suggest a letter with the preamble, something to the effect that at its June 28th full authority board meeting, the board accepted the annual water quality report. We would like to extend that presentation to our lower tier municipalities and make sure every municipality gets a copy of that letter, and hopefully we can coordinate if we do get an invite to come present to that particular council. We'll be more than happy to do that. So make sure that at the very least the presentation goes to all our partners, and if they would like further information or a delegation, then they can coordinate certainly with our CEO and staff to accommodate that request. So thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. I'm going to need a mover to accept the annual water quality report. Moved by Member Beatty, seconded by Member Beatty. All those in favor of accepting the report? Opposed? And that is accepted. Our next item on the agenda is the Conservation Authority Act review, proposed amendments to Bill 139. I did allude to it during my chair's comments, but at this time I'm going to ask Susan McInnes to come forward and just give us a presentation on the proposed changes in Bill 139. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the changes to the Conservation Authorities Act as proposed through Bill 139. So the purpose of the presentation is just to give you a bit of an update. Bill 139 had a whole lot of information in it about changes to the planning process. I'm not going to talk about that material today. I'm going to focus on the changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. So as you recall, in 2015, the Ministry of Resources and Forestry posted a discussion paper to get some feedback about governance, funding mechanisms, and roles and responsibilities of CAs. This board provided input at that time, and again in 2016 when a second discussion paper was released. And here we are now with a proposed bill that had first reading on May 30th at the provincial government. And it's interesting, when you talk to people about Bill 139, some people think it's a done deal. We're not there yet. As you can see on this graphic, we're just at the first stage. So that was May 30th. It's scheduled to go to second reading in September, but it's also one of several, I think more than 70 bills that are on the table for the provincial government. Following the second reading, there could be a review committee or public hearings, depending on how the provincial government decides to go. The fourth stage is a report to House Committee, and with any amendments that may come up during this period in time, and that's followed by the third reading and royal assent. So the changes to the Act are, you could pretty much put in these 5 categories, and these categories are outlined in the document that the chairman brought to your attention at the beginning of the meeting. So I'm just going to run through those quickly. So oversight and accountability. This is updating the appointment process and the requirements. So this takes on the term of municipal councils, taking the term of boards to match that of municipal councils being 4 years instead of 3. Updating some of the Conservation Authority governance practices. Allowing the MNR to conduct program and operational reviews. Updating guidance about dispute resolution, and confirming provincial expectations when it comes to CA restructuring decisions. The next area they've focused on is clarity and consistency when it comes to programs and services that CAs offer, and it's clarifying the provincial, well, I think expectations in general. I think you can break it down into 3 categories. So there's going to be things that are going to be provincially mandated in terms of CA programs and services, clarifying expectations for municipally assigned programs and services. So that's things like the memorandums of understanding that we currently have for planning. And there's also clarifying some expectations when it comes to programming offered by the individual CAs that are specific to their watershed. The next area is clarity and consistency. So this focuses on clarifying the scope of the activity subject to Conservation Authority approval, scope of Conservation Authority's review, updating some compliance mechanisms and enforcement tools. So one of the things that was a highlight to our staff in this was the opportunity to be able to issue stop work orders under Section 28. We don't have that ability currently, so that was really good. And there were some provisions in there as well for changes to fines for activities that shouldn't be taking in places that are regulated. And it also offers the opportunity to the province to regulate other activities within the Conservation Authority's area of jurisdiction. So collaboration and engagement. This was something that I know this board focused on in the last strategic plan, and I imagine it will continue in the next one. But increasing the Indigenous public and stakeholder outreach and engagement in all that we do, increasing coordination between provincial ministries. And this will be really interesting moving forward, because there are lots of things that we do on behalf of different ministries, and it would be good to have conservation authorities and those ministries at the table looking at those together. One of those areas, of course, is climate change, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. Increasing collaboration between CAs and the province. I'm excited to see this because we have an MOU currently between the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, Conservation Ontario, Ministry of Natural Resources, regarding our role in the planning process. And that MOU is from 2001, so it's really nice to be able to have that opportunity to update that and bring it into a current standard. And the last thing has to do with increasing collaboration and engagement on service delivery standards. Modernizing funding mechanisms, of course, is something that all CAs are very interested in. And I think this board has been at the forefront of dealing with this matter in terms of apportioning costs to participating municipalities. And the province has said they want to take a look at that and improving that process. There's also an opportunity to look at the use of fees, how we develop them, having policies in place that explain to the board and to the public how we develop fees, and to have fee schedules. In our programs now, we have the fee schedules, but we don't have a formal fee process. So that's something positive moving forward. And the last bullet is about exploring options for updating provincial funding mechanisms. Because as you know, in 1996, there were huge changes to how CAs were funded, and it really hasn't been revisited since that time. So I think everybody's interested in seeing that. So the last category is some housekeeping changes. So that removes requirements for the CAs to get approval from the Ontario Municipal Board for per diems, things about, you know, interest rates having to be approved by the minister, and like I say, just some housekeeping changes that will make all of our lives a little bit easier. And that's it. Oh, sorry, my mistake. So next steps, the province is accepting comments on these changes as shown in Bill 139 until the end of July. It will be on the next session of the provincial parliament in September. There are a couple of things ongoing in terms of this multi-ministry working group to develop some of the regulatory changes proposed in the legislation. Because one of the big changes recommended in Bill 139 moves things from the Act itself to a regulation. And so we have to figure out what those words are in terms of things that conservation authorities regulate and some of our other program areas. There's also another group that's been put up in terms of Service Delivery Review Committee to put together some of the proposed policies and procedures. So I'll leave it at that. I know that's very high level, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne, for that overview. And I want to thank our partners at Conservation Ontario and certainly our staff here, because I think within 48 hours of that omnibus bill being presented on the floor in Bill 139, we were very quick to act as far as disseminating some of the changes. We provided a red line addition to the board and certainly our partners to let them know that there were changes coming. So great job, Conservation Ontario. Great job here at the NPCA to make sure that we conveyed some of those changes to the broader public. Member Quirk.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Suzanne or whoever would like to answer the question. Are we actually going to formally respond? Are there anything that we found either at the staff level or at the board level within Bill 139 that we were looking to make comment on for changes or request changes at this time?
So far at a staff level, we haven't really had an opportunity to discuss it with the senior management team, but I haven't seen anything really that raises a red flag.
With that, through you, Chair, if the deadline now to comment is the end of July, if I heard correctly, do we have another board meeting between now and then? So if there was any comments, that we would see them before they were submitted to the EBR for any commentary.
Well, so to Member Quirk's, that's certainly a legitimate concern. So I'm going to suggest that be staff direction, that if senior management does have any commenting that they want to put forward to the ministry, that the board be apprised as far as what those comments are, and keep everyone in the loop as far. And again, it's a two-way street. So if the board has any comments with respect to changes within Bill 139 that they want to refer back to our staff here, or certainly they can present comments to the group as a whole, and maybe it be a collective that we provide those comments. Mark?
If I may, Chair.
1 second. Hold on, Mickey. Hold on.
If I may, Chair, I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of problems with the actual act or the changes that have been made to the act. It's enabling legislation. Where it's going to get tricky or where you're going to have an interest is what are these regulations going to be? Because that's the vast unknown where they could go in all kinds of directions. They can actually be specific to a specific conservation authority, or they can apply to all conservation authorities. The issue of apportionment, as we know, has played out at this board, but the regulations around that and what they're proposing have not been developed or defined. So it's going to be the discussion around these regulations where we're really going to see how this thing really changes or not, and that's where I would ask that you really pay attention to that.
Member Quirk, any other, Member Timms? Oh.
Thank you, and thank you, Suzanne, for the presentation. It just, I think, highlights that the act is very consistent, or the proposed act is very consistent with what this Conservation Authority recommended. I think very consistent with what the Niagara region has recommended. So my question is, I guess, follows the same as Member Quirk's. Are there any outstanding items or recommendations that we wanted that were missed in this and these proposed changes? The red flag question, I guess.
I think at a general level that a lot of the comments raised by this board in the past have been addressed. I would have to go back and take a look at the specific recommendations that this board adopted last year and compare them, but I don't have an answer for you today.
So the specific requests from various municipalities that the appointment of board members does not seem to be addressed or changed in these recommendations. The Act recommends that the municipalities maintain the responsibility for making the appointments. Is that fair?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, you're correct that the changes to the Act still recognize the municipality as the authority for selecting members, although it does say that the province may introduce through regulation like membership criteria or qualifications of board members. And as the CAO has said, it's the devil that, it's in the details where we'll see what those specifics are.
So you're saying that the Act, these recommendations do allow some kind of response through the regulation. So that's a concern that we need to pay attention to. Thank you.
Member Beatty, and then Member Maloney.
Yeah, following up on Councillor Tim's questions there, I'm looking at page 3 of your report regarding CA board members, and I just need some clarification as to the first sentence. It says, Section 4.1 was revised to reflect upper-tier governments, not just regional governments, who does appointments. I'm not sure what upper-tier governments means. Does it mean that the province might consider appointing reps?
My understanding of it is that they were putting clarification in there to acknowledge that it used to say refer to regional governments, and so now that there's been amalgamations in some municipalities, they're considered an upper tier municipality, so say like the city of Hamilton, the county of Haldimand. I think that's what the purpose of the change was, more than anything else.
Okay, and then to follow that then says previous language about appointment by local municipalities was removed, so that would be not seen positively by the town of Pelham, is my guess.
You're correct, they have removed reference to local municipalities, so it's upper
applaud
tier.
the inclusion of that clause.
That's probably rhetorical, Suzanne. You don't have to answer that. That's fine. Yeah. Member Maloney.
Just a question, Mr. Chair. Procedurally, this bill will be up for next session in September.
Correct. Second reading.
Then go to committee for dissecting and consideration further.
Yes.
Has any thought been given by this authority, staff or members, to appear before that committee, emphasizing those areas of the Act that we support, and criticizing those areas that we may not support, as a further part of the process of this new act moving forward.
Well, I certainly think there's value in that, understanding that how I interpret some of the changes, and maybe Suzanne can comment on this, that the province is anticipating that where warranted, all conservation authorities will be mandated, or you could be more selective and certain conservation authorities will have certain responsibilities over others. So maybe the past practice was have Conservation Ontario speak on behalf of all 36 conservation authorities, because that was the general practice and it was an overarching policy. But now how I'm reading it is there may be opportunity to respect the autonomy of individual conservation authorities, respecting the uniqueness of individual conservation authorities, and maybe implementing certain changes only for certain conservation authorities. So to Member Maloney's point, probably some value in maybe exploring that opportunity. So Suzanne, if you want to comment on that.
I agree, through you, Mr. Chair, that there is an opportunity to explore those topics. I think that they're trying to create that flexibility in the legislation so that you can't always anticipate down the road what's going to happen within a particular CA or within the role mandate of things that we do. And so they're trying to create that flexibility so that you can make changes as you need to through a regulation, as opposed to coming back to change the Conservation Authorities Act. So one of the examples might be, not in this watershed, but the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority is in a unique situation because they implement something called the Lake Simcoe Act. So that's something that has nothing to do with the NPCA, but everything to do with just Lake Simcoe Conservation Area. So I think it's to deal with those kinds of very site-specific things, and as you say, things that may apply to one CA don't apply to all.
Great comments. Thank you, Suzanne. So again, we were hoping moving forward that instead of working with $1996, the province would actually recognize that we're working with 2017 dollars. So I'm hoping when it is finalized that they respect that. The other important distinction I want to make, and that's clarifying that conservation authorities are permitted to provide programs and services beyond those mandated by the province. So understanding there's two tracks here. There's programs and responsibilities that we are mandated to do, and then there's programs and services that are beyond that mandate that we engage or undertake via MOU. And this has to be stressed very, very strongly, that it's a partnership between the municipality and the NPCA to undertake those programs and responsibilities. So I'm hoping that this board is completely engaged. I respect the governance model that we have here because it provides that continuity and that collegiality and that conduit to our lower tier municipalities. So the board, working with your respective municipalities, make sure that the language in any MOU that comes forward and any partnership that we're undertaking as a conservation authority is clearly articulated and understood moving forward. So any other questions for Suzanne?
This is not a question.
Okay, so let me thank Suzanne first. Suzanne, thank you for presenting. I'm going to need a mover to accept the presentation. Moved by Member Kasperset, seconded by Member Shurton. All those in favor of receiving the report, opposed? And that is received. So thank you, Suzanne. Okay, Member DeFrucio.
Margaret Reed. She had a permanent appointment by the Minister of Natural Resources. At that time it was Vince Cario. And she had a permanent appointment on the board as long as she wanted to stay. And she did stay. And then her health started deteriorating, and then she resigned from the board. So that might be something you can think about.
Well, thanks for that, Member DeFrucio. With respect to governance, I think the province has been quite clear as far as what the governance model is going forward. So thanks for those comments. So next on the agenda are reports for consideration. We'll try to get through these as quickly as possible, but I'll need a mover and a seconder for each one of them. I'll call them out one at a time. Report number 6617, Virgil Dams, Niagara-on-the-Lake, future ownership and management. I know this was a report that was deferred until Member Dart could be here to possibly provide insight to the board. So I'll need a mover to put that on the floor. Moved by Member Dart, seconded by Member Quirk. Question or comments? Member Dart.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to comment a few things. The town and the irrigation committee and our irrigation supervisor are very interested in this discussion, so we're happy to enter into the discussions. We're just concerned a bit about the timeline or the deadline with the MOECC, and it's quite a possibility that we may need to extend that just to make sure that we get all of our ducks in a row. So I just want staff here to consider that, the possibility of asking for an extension, and no, other than that, we're ready for a discussion.
So I'll refer that to staff, and Mark, is that's doable as far as extending, giving our partners some time? Okay. Any other question or comments on that report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of receiving? Opposed? And that report is received. Our next one, report number 67-17, Niagara Catholic District School Board lease agreement for St. John's Valley Center, and we have a presentation by Marco Magazzini, Niagara Catholic School Board. Marco, is Marco here? Yep. Hey, Marco.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just remind board members that this is the property at St. John's. Previously, this property represented a $250,000 to $300,000 a year cost, and it was through the expression of interest program that we entered into this wonderful partnership with the Niagara Catholic District School Board, Brock University, Niagara College, and the Niagara Native Center. Marco's been the driving force behind this project, and I look forward to hearing his presentation.
I'm the administrator of alternative learning and community partnerships with Niagara Catholic. I've had some workings with a lot of you on different projects within your municipalities or your staff. Before I go into our presentation, I think it's pivotal for me to thank three individuals who actually have walked with Niagara Catholic on our journey to where we are today. Wouldn't be doing this presentation today without Mark, without David, or without Greg. And I'm sure the staff behind them that have brought this pretty unique program forward for the region of Niagara. Alternative learning, basically, as you'll see in the presentation, alternative learning is there are thousands of students within Niagara region that for whatever reason cannot shadow a door of a conventional school. Our board has been very aggressive to reach out to those communities and to those students that for whatever reason students can't come to school, and we are trying to find different programming and partnerships to re-engage students, to bring them back into an environment where we expose them especially to a caring adult, and I think you will see this as part of our presentation and what we've been doing in the past. Niagara Catholic is referring to this property as St. Kateri Center. St. Kateri is the first North American Indigenous saint that was canonized by Pope Benedict on October 21st in 2012. Again, just so your board is fully aware, we did not pick this name out of a hat. We did not pick this name exclusively by our board or our administrators. It was vetted through community, and it was vetted through the Indigenous community of Niagara as well, because we have no intention to certainly offend anyone. So back in the fall of 2015, probably a little bit before that, I started meeting with Mark in regards to the property and the buildings that are on the site, and we brought forward a proposal that was instrumental through Brock University as well, Niagara Catholic, yourself, Niagara College, Niagara Regional Native Center, and of course, which our ministry under the umbrella of the Ministry of Education. The focus for Niagara Catholic, which we have not deviated from, is outdoor education for our students across Niagara Catholic and Indigenous Studies. We have no intention of deviating from those two pillars on this property. The outdoor education piece falls under the Ministry of Education guidelines. The ministry has put a large focus on making sure students get their hands dirty and get bark and dirt under their fingernails again. That has worked. The property, as you know, is amazing. We partnered with Brock University. Our board, again, is also very cognitive of the fact that it's not always perhaps our staff that have to deliver learning opportunities, and we recognize the programming through Brock University of their outdoor education programming, and we've contracted out our delivery model to Brock. So you have Brock University staff on site that delivers our outdoor education piece. The Indigenous learning that is happening on the property, which is happening in the main house, that was a partnership which you'll see a little bit further with Niagara Regional Native Center in Niagara-on-the-Lake. It involves the other Indigenous communities and agencies as well throughout Niagara, but the primary partnership is with Niagara Regional Native Center. They had requested back in 2016 if we would offer a teacher on the property to re-engage students back into school who their attendance was nothing to really brag about back in a conventional school. They would have been under the auspices of Ministry of Education high risk, not attending conventional schooling system, not attending alternative programmings, probably both within the district school board or Niagara Catholic, totally disengaged. So we started on that journey with Niagara Regional Native Center as well as Brock University on the outdoor ed. From 2016 to 2017, over 1,500 elementary and secondary students have been through the programming on the property. Alternative learning centers, we currently have Pope Francis Center, we have Niagara Link, and a couple other sites, again, that are students that perhaps are facing some challenges that can't get to school. We've made programming specific to them as well. We have a young parent program where we brought through approximately 30 young parents, teen parents, and their children on the property. We do photo shoots with them on the property and bring in other agencies to work with primarily young moms. ESL classes, we've brought through about 700 students across Niagara Catholic. That was pretty profound in the sense that most have never experienced an outdoor setting or outdoor educational activity like that. Some of them were in the winter, which was interesting conversations with some of the students. Section 23 is one of our teachers is stationed at David S. Horn. Students who have, again, faced some struggles in life that perhaps may be on probation. Our focus at Niagara Catholic is realizing that probation will end, and these students have opportunities in front of them. We do programming with David S. Horn. The students are out there on a monthly basis as well. And we've invited multicultural centers across Niagara Catholic, or Niagara, to utilize the property. We provide them with our staff from Brock University, and we've even done outreach to private schools. And there's a huge homeschooling group that's in West Niagara that we've also offered our programming and property to. Those multicultural center and the private schools or home instruction folks have utilized the property on our professional development days. These are just students from our elementary or multicultural center. Pope Francis Center, these are our students, again, that are in alternative learning. We have our English as second language learners that are on the property. And this is probably, all of us have highlights within our careers. There's highs and lows. I would say that this is probably one of the highlights of my careers thus far, not only in securing the property for this programming, but working with the Indigenous community. It's, I can frankly say that it's not the easiest in the sense of coming from a Catholic board. There is a large truth and reconciliation legislation that we are a part of in this journey. We work very closely with our Indigenous partners throughout Niagara. The success of this program has been overwhelming. When I expressed to you that we went to the community in order to bring forward the name of St. Kateri, the community, Niagara Regional Native Center, and the students came back to us and said, we agree as long as we can own our own program. And they came up with the name of Soaring Eagles, and they came up with that logo as well. So we accepted that, and that's been approved at our board as well. So our enrollment for 2016 and 17 in Soaring Eagles was 30 students. We just had, you'll see a couple pictures, we just had our first graduation on the property. We did an outdoor ceremony led by Niagara Regional Native Center. 15 students graduated with their Ontario Secondary School Diploma. 7 students attended a dual credit program. So as while you're in high school today, you can, in grade 11 or 12, attend Niagara College for various programs in a partnership under School College Work. We've just also signed an agreement a couple weeks ago, which you may have seen, with Brock University. It'll be the first for Niagara Catholic, or the first in Niagara, of a dual credit with Brock as well. We give priority seating to at-risk students for these programs. 4 of the current graduates are moving on to Niagara Catholic or Niagara College. And we also provide various specialist high schools major programs which lead directly into college and university, but primarily for us right now, a very strong apprenticeship program through Niagara Catholic. Coming up in the fall, we're actually, as of this morning, we have a waiting list. We're at about 36 students that are registered for June, so we're looking to see how we're going to deal with that, but it's very, very good. Matt Terryberry is a student from Soaring Eagles who's done amazing work with photography, earned a photography credit while attending last year. His work was highlighted at Rodman Hall up until June 24th. Through Brock University, the students that are there do check the pH levels on the creek that's going through, the temperature. And if you happen to pop by one day, you'll see students either working outside on artwork. We finally, I think we're close to getting a pretty good Wi-Fi out on the property. Students are bringing Chromebooks outside and doing the work. It is totally unconventional learning, but it works. Our attendance with this group of students hovers around 96% attendance. We've done drum making workshops outside with the students. That's on the front porch of the main house. And this was their graduation ceremonies. All student-led, all led by student voice in terms of what they were asking for. You know, the students that are there are students that may have walked into our program with 3 or 4 credits, and some have graduated, and some are close to graduating within the next year. So it's a pretty powerful thing when you actually see them coming. The students are showing up every day. If you're familiar with the house, they start out with making their own breakfast every morning in that kitchen. Around that island, I'd probably suggest there's more learning happening around that island with breakfast than there is in the main room where the classroom is. It is a humbling experience also to know there is no bullying. We've had no bullying issues. We've had no fights. Have we had probably some substances that shouldn't be in a school environment? Yes, I'm not going to lie, but that's happening in most schools, and we address it, and we address it in a very different way with the Indigenous community. We participate, the students participate actively in talking circles in terms of conflict resolutions. Students led opening ceremonies at the graduation. The young woman accepting her diploma is the first in 3 generations in completing her diploma. We use it for staff development. We had an outdoor mass, and the one thing that we do try to do is we engage our neighbors around the property. We do give them notice of different events that we're going to have. We had 4 neighbors join us for mass. This was about 3 weeks ago. And some of our next steps that I do want you to be aware of. Again, our core is always going to be outdoor education and an Indigenous Learning Center. Next steps I have on there for Brock University. Brock University has a group of students that come from remote northern communities in Ontario that they do a pretty good job in trying to transition students and have done so successfully in university. They are looking at utilizing our property over the summer months as a team building activity rather than going back up north. They want to stay on the property, and then it's an easier location, obviously, proximity to Brock. So we're in negotiations with them as well, because there are some students that will be coming from remote communities that have not completed their OSSD as well. We work closely with Greg with facility improvements. The facility improvements that we've done on the property, obviously with approval from yourselves, we do with our students through our construction program, our manufacturing program, our horticulture program. So we've replaced flooring in both of the houses, lighting, we've done plumbing. We've just finished the roof replacement of the smaller house next to the schoolhouse. Those are all things that we use as experiential learning activities for our students that are done by qualified contractors working hand in hand with our students. The grounds, we've worked with your staff in terms of the pollinator planting as well, and a native planting project. We worked with we have a horticulture program as well. Future programming, we're hoping to run summer camps with Niagara Regional Native Center on the property. We've piloted 5 kindergarten classrooms this past May to see how far back we can go in terms of age. It was extremely successful, and we're working closely with agencies like Community Living for special education programming as well. And I know that even with the neighbors, there has been some concerns in terms of the gardens that are on the property, which our plan in the upcoming school year, not September, but the following semester, which starts in February, is we have a horticulture teacher stationed at the Niagara Parks Commission right next to the School of Horticulture. We're going to be relocating him onto the property to start bringing back some of the gardens with the students that are there, and they'll be achieving credits as well towards their diploma. We've had various people come through. The Ministry of Education has been on the property probably 3 or 4 times, our education officers, and it's humbling when they keep expressing that, well, you really have to advertise this, you really have to show what you're doing. I suggest to our board a different approach. I don't want to really advertise in the sense that I think we're just doing what we're supposed to be doing. I don't think it's something that has to be blown up to pound our chests on to say this is what Niagara Catholic is doing. And I think that fits within our truth and reconciliation piece with our community partners too. Showing people what we're doing is the 15 students that graduated last week, and watching their reaction to actually receiving a diploma. And our director handed out the diplomas, and I said to our director afterwards, I said, no, and this isn't by no means a negative comment. If you look at their faces, do you actually see those faces sitting in our classrooms in a secondary school? And his answer was no. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. If you have opportunity to come, we still do after, finalizing this lease now, a permanent agreement with us. We still do want to have an appropriate partnership ceremony on the property, and we do want to get proper signage on there to have all the partners on board. So I can't thank you enough for the work that you've done, and for approving this, for accepting the work that we're doing on the program, and we look forward to working closer with you on various different projects as well.
I'm going to stay right there, Marco. I'm going to open up to the board for questions or comments. Member Beatty.
Thank you for the presentation. In my former life, I was involved in programs like College Link, Second Chance, Completed Credit, and so on. So I applaud what you're doing. In particular, the fact that it's outreach, that you're not exclusively dealing with the Catholic community, although I respect the obligations that you have there. I'm really impressed with all aspects of the presentation that you've given us here today. The one thing that I do have a question about is, I'm assuming that the students are picked up at their residence and brought in. How far do they come? What's the furthest distance the student would come, and what kind of time would they be getting with a bus?
Okay, it's a great question. You would probably know this answer after I say it. Students are coming from as far as Fort Erie, and we had 2 students coming in from Grimsby as well. We cannot pick students up before 9 o'clock. The day is shortened, but we were told, very clear at the start, picking a student up at 8 o'clock as a conventional method does not work. Students arrive on the property around 9:30, and their return time is 2:45. Pickup is 2:45. It's an expensive process, as I think you can imagine. We cab students in, but there really is no other way. We had one of the provosts from Brock on the property the other day. We're working closely with them to start an elementary program, and it's when you really look back and you look at the data of students, Indigenous students in particular, that are not going to school in Niagara, it's a very sad number, and I think we own some of that. Our systems own some of that. Both systems own some of that, and I think we're both working together to address that. But we've taken risk. I've heard you using the word risk in here in some of your programs, but the rewards right now are pretty big.
Okay. I'm just wondering whether we have communicated to the former owners of this property the nature of the program, because I think they would applaud. It's carrying on with the tradition that they began, but a much broader component. So if that hasn't happened, I would encourage it. And there's 2 things that come to my mind as suggestions for consideration. One of them would be, especially when I see kinesiology at Brock University, the consideration of an outdoor ropes course in terms of having that, you have the property to be able to do that. My experience with outdoor education is that a ropes course has significant contribution and value in building self-esteem and group cohesion, etc. So that's one consideration. The second is, I asked the question out loud, why are we not applying for an exemption from taxation? This is an educational facility. It's being repurposed for that. I think that it should qualify for the tax exemption that educational institutions have. So maybe you can follow up on both those requests. Thank you.
Great comments, Member Beatty. Thank you so much. Member Dart?
I just wanted to make a couple of comments through you, Chair. I've worked with Marco before, and I believe we're working on a project as we speak right now. So I want to talk about how important this whole program of specialist high skills major courses are for education for people who are less than academic, I guess, for lack of a better term. I mean, it is actually a huge thing, and we hope to keep it going. One question for you, Marco, is what was the graduation rate of the Catholic School Board in the province this year? So you were second, right? Thank you. I just wanted to make that point.
Great. Yeah.
Alternative programming is what has also influenced that number. There are students that just can't work within the confines of a school. Data tells us pretty clear an 8 o'clock start is too early for students, and we still do it. I don't know if my lifetime will change that, but there's a lot of things that we're able to do. We work closely with DSPN as well. I have a meeting starting in about half an hour to 45 minutes on the property. It's our Aboriginal Educational Advisory Committee, which is co-chaired by myself and my colleague from DSPN. But we're doing great things. To Councillor Beatty, in regards to the kinesiology, it's interesting you said that, because that is the dual credit that's taking place with Brock University. And that's hopefully what is going to be a combination between on campus at Brock and on the property as well.
Member Timms?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to congratulate Marco and the school board for the progress you've made on this site. I was particularly intrigued about the use of talking circles as a resolution mechanism at the high school level. And it's kind of progressive, returning to be progressive by returning to traditional practice. And I'm sure it resonates very well within your group, so congratulate you on that particular aspect. And I just want to comment that the progress on this site since the Conservation Authority probably 4 years ago started on the process of returning this site. I think largely through the efforts of Councillor Beatty and the concern for that location. It seems like a long journey, but I really do like where we're landing with this. So support for this recommendation is, I'd like to move that recommendation if it hasn't already been covered, just to be how remarkable the progress here has been and how productive it's going to be to our community in a way we might not have imagined 4 years ago. Thank you.
Great comments. Member Quirk.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to move the motion and say congratulations to Marco, the school board. Also like to, we pat ourselves a little bit on the back, but I'd like to say thank you to staff for coming up with this innovative way to deal with the property and the work that's going forward there. This is a great news story for how we can work collaboratively with our partners within our watershed jurisdiction. So just well done to you, sir, and to your entire organization, Marco.
Yeah, great comments by the board, and I'm going to echo those, Marco. And I'm going to suggest that, and I don't want to get into a big, pedagogy discussion here, but it's a proven fact that outdoor learning and certainly, bringing children into the environment and into those outdoor settings increases the opportunity to learn. And I'm a huge fan of that one saying, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll go through life thinking that it just can't do certain things. So it's a fantastic initiative, and I want to congratulate the board. Because and Mark and certainly staff, because we went down this path probably a year and a half ago to find a disposition of that property, and I can honestly say that we got it right. That the RFP came out, and the Niagara Catholic District School Board kind of seized this opportunity, and we look at the fruits of that hard work. So congratulations, Mark, to you and the board. We look forward to exposing all our properties, and that's part of the conversations we're having with DSBN right now. They have a great facility at Wood End, but we know that we have great opportunities for outdoor learning through all our properties, and we're going to see if we can expose those properties to the children of the watershed. So thank you so much for making the presentation. It's a good news story, and we're going to make sure that we communicate that to the broader public. And again, congratulations to this board and staff for following through on this initiative. I have a mover by Member Tim, seconded by Member Quirk. All those in favor of receiving the presentation? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you, Marco. Our next report is OPG data. I skipped one. Yep. MNRF WECI agreement, St. John's Dam safety review. Can I get a mover for that, please? Oh, I see it right here. Okay, thank you. Got it. Okay. All right. So let's back up a little bit then. So we're going to do resolution number FA 13617, moved by Member Tim, seconded by Member Quirk, that the NPCA Board of Directors direct the CAO to enter a 5-year lease agreement with Niagara Catholic District School Board to operate educational programming at St. John's Valley Center property owned by the NPCA. Questions or comments? I think we've exhausted that opportunity. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Wonderful initiative. Congratulations, board. The next item on the agenda, going back again, MNRF Wiki Agreement, St. John's Dam Safety Review. That report number 6817. Can I get a mover for that, please? Member Kasperset, seconded by Member Beatty. And the resolution that's going to be put on the floor, that the NPCA board approve the recommendation to enter into an agreement with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, whereby both the MNRF and the NPCA would contribute $40,000 towards the proposed St. John's Dam Safety Review pursuant to the MNRF's Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure Program. Questions or comments with respect to that? Member Quirk.
Thank you, Chair. I just noticed this is not a funded project within our current 2017 budget, and the proposal is to take it out of our general operating reserves. Is there no other reserve that is significant for dam maintenance and dam construction within our current financial envelopes that we have to rate our general reserves?
I'll put that question to staff.
There's not.
Okay. So when we go through the budget process, we had a very brief discussion about the nature of our reserves and emergency reserves for the 2018. If we are doing it this way for this this project, maybe we want to consider that as one of the other things that we can be talking about in terms of emergency funding reserves.
Okay. We'll take that as staff direction. Mark?
Thank you, and I appreciate that that suggestion. Just to be clear, these items were brought forward in the budget process. It was determined that that we would actually first make the request for funding. We got the approval from WECI that the project had been approved, and therefore it was up to the board then to provide matching funds for that program. It was raised at that time, and it was determined that we would actually see if we were getting the money first before we actually came and requested that money through the reserves.
Through you, Chair, then just as a quick follow-up, I don't see the recommended project you wanted to cut to fund this, so I'm sure that's always in our discussions as well.
Question or comments to the report? Member Kasperseth and then Member Beatty.
Through the chair, why isn't this a levy item instead of coming out of our pockets?
We'll ask that of staff.
Well, the only reason is because of the way it's been done. Absolutely. Potentially this could be a special levy. But because it was not included in the budget process, we have no other way to address that.
I don't know if we're in time for this budget cycle, but possibly. Well, I would. Okay. So going forward, and I appreciate those comments, I think the door has been shut for this budget cycle, but I'd certainly entertain direction from this board to move forward in one direction or another with respect to that item. So I appreciate you bringing that forward, Member Kasperseth. Member Timms.
I think the question is somewhat answered in the report in terms of this is an MNRF program. One of the few things the MNRF is doing for us. So my question is, the maximum we can get from the MNRF is 50%. Maybe the way the program operates, and perhaps staff could help us out with that. But this is one of the things they do actually do for us without having to put it on the levy. So I think we're taking maximum advantage of the opportunity on this particular project.
I understand it's a private joke between you and I, sir. With respect to the dam, is this as bad as it sounds to me? Anyway, I was told some years ago that the dam at Bimbrook is paid for by Hamilton, by special levy. Is that not correct? And that dams are paid by the municipality that has the dam in it. Damn it. So if Hamilton has to pay for Lake Nyapinkos Dam, and the information I was given some time ago was that that's the regulation, that's the, I believe it's in the act, that if the dam is in your municipality, you pay for it. So Niagara should be paying for it. Is that correct? Something changed?
I think that's a fair assessment. The problem is the funding approvals happen mid-budget cycle. And so the question is, how do we address that?
Well, I can give you a suggestion. I will call it the Bill Hodgson Fund. You could draw from it, because that is Niagara money.
So I've already made note of it, that this is certainly something that is on our radar. So moving forward in the next budget cycle, I will entertain the direction of this board to move in one direction or another with respect to who funds this particular dam. So again, probably not for this discussion at this board, but we'll leave it with staff and staff direction. Okay? Yep, I agree. Any other question or comments with respect to this motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. The next report, OPG OPG Data Sharing Agreement, report number 69-17. I'll read the resolution that the NPCA Board approve the recommendation to enter into an agreement with Ontario Power Generation whereby the NPCA and OPG would share stream gauge data between the two organizations as per the attached information sharing, flow, and evaluation data agreement. I need a mover for that, please. Moved by Member Tim, seconded by Member Kaspersets. That report is on the floor for questions or comments. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call. Oh, Member Beatty.
One, and it's actually outside the report in a sense. Because we're going to have a period of time in which the river is going to be normal, I'd just like to have a staff assessment. Do we have sufficient monitoring stations to allow a thorough research when that time does happen? I'll just leave that as a question. It's not this report, actually.
Okay, all right, and I think that speaks to what Member Tim's raised earlier as far as data mining and collecting as much information as we possibly can. So we'll leave that as staff direction, and hopefully we'll get that answer as far as whether or not we have the appropriate amount of measuring equipment on that particular stretch. Seeing no other questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Item number 15, Reforestation Land Care Niagara Agreement, report number 70-17, that the NPCA Board approve the recommendation that the NPCA to enter an agreement with Land Care Niagara whereby the NPCA would contribute $7,150 toward the implementation of Land Care Niagara's 6 rural tree planting projects as per the attached memorandum of agreement. Can I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Member Quirk, seconded by Member Shurton. Questions or comments to that report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Item 16, Reforestation Haldeman Stewardship Council Agreement, report number 71-17, that the NPCA Board approve the recommendation that the NPCA enter an agreement with Haldeman Stewardship Council whereby the NPCA would contribute $4,000 toward the implementation of the Haldeman Stewardship Council's 4 rural tree planting projects as per the attached memorandum of agreement. Can I move by Member Quirk, seconded by Member Shurton. Questions or comments to that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Item number 17. Yeah, I'll go to you first. Go ahead, Member Quirk.
Thank you. Just this is with respect to the Mickey DeFrucio Family Legacy Pollinator Project, which we just received the presentation on. We had a very fulsome discussion at the foundation yesterday, so I was wondering if I could move that we receive the report and refer it to the foundation for some funding opportunities there for this particular project, and ask the foundation to report back to us before approving the project financial contribution.
So I think that would be appropriate. So I have a referral motion. Do you have a seconder? Member Kaspersets. Okay. Okay, so we're going to receive it and refer it to the Foundation Committee.
Sorry, and with respect to timing, I would ask the chair of the foundation we discuss it at the earliest possible convenience and bring it back.
So all right, so the earliest opportunity the Foundation Board will meet. I do think that's appropriate. I'll read the motion and I'll call the referral. That report number 7217 regarding the pollinator project be received for information, and that the NPCA Board of Directors approve the Mickey DeFrucio Legacy Pollinator Project Initiative in principle. And I have a referral motion to the Foundation. Speaking to the referral, there is no speaking to the referral. All those in favor? Opposed? And that has been referred. Thank you for that, Member Quirk. Item 18, Canada 150th Anniversary School Board Project, report number 7317. That report number 7317 be received for information, and that the NPCA Board authorize staff to use up to $25,000 from the OPG reserve account to fund the Canada 150th Anniversary School Board Project as outlined in this report. Can I get a mover? Member Quirk, seconded by Member DeFrucio. Questions or comments to that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. The last one, oh, it's not the last one. Yes, it is. The last one, number 19, unsolicited proposal, Burlington Beach Rentals Agreement, report number 7417. Initially, we had this in closed session. We have spoken to the proponents. They do not mind it being discussed in public. We will discuss it in an open and transparent way. The resolution is that the NPCA Board of Directors direct the CAO to enter into a 1-year facility use agreement with Burlington Beach Rentals to operate at Binbrook Conservation Area. I need a mover for that. Member Kaspersitz, seconded by Member Sherton. Questions or comments to that? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. This one refers to Burlington Beach Rentals to operate at Binbrook Conservation Area. Member Kaspersitz?
Through the chair to Mark, will they be there this weekend?
If you pass this, yes.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we do have some new business that was brought forward by Member Beatty and Member Timms. Member Beatty, Conservation and Governance Committee. Would you like to speak to that?
Been operating for the last number of years with the foundation with 3 members of this organization serving as the board. We're up to 6, and we're looking forward to developing basically a program that would include members of the public at large, okay, in terms of fully populating that board. To that end, I'm looking for volunteers to serve on a committee. I thought I'd bring it here rather than just the existing 6 people on the foundation. The job would be to basically examine what the consultant has put forward in recommendations in terms of seeking out and getting people to commit to serving on a bigger or broader foundation in terms of governance. Perhaps looking at one or more other foundations in the province for best practice, etc., and somehow to develop a process by which I would hope that before our anniversary year, a year from now, that we do reestablish a full populated board. So basically it will be a short task involving, I would guess, 3 to 4 meetings perhaps, in terms of developing this model for governance and getting the board populated with members of the public at large.
So great comments, and I will say this, the foundation is experiencing a bit of a resurgence. Thank you to the former leadership of former Chair Timms, and certainly the current chairmanship of Member Beatty. So we are looking for qualified individuals to sit on our foundation board as we move forward. Congratulations to staff, and certainly Renee Bisson, who has led the charge on establishing the principles of our foundation moving forward. So we will take that as direction, and again, it's incumbent upon all board members to make sure that we convey that message that the foundation is looking for members. The second item, Marketing Facilities South Shore Tourism Organization. Member Timms, if you'd like to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask that we give staff direction to investigate, have discussions with the South Coast Tourism Organization. It's one of the destination marketing organizations that are in partnership with the TPN or RTO number 2. The opportunities that might be there for the Conservation Authority to promote and market our properties along the Lake Erie shoreline. So just a request for staff to initiate some discussion there.
So I'll take that as staff direction, but Member Quirk?
Just to follow up with what Member Timms is saying, I think that's a great idea, because we've also talked about how we can do alternative marketing, but also were they consulted when we were doing our master plan for some of those properties at all, or have we, or can we approach them still? Is there still time to talk to them about our master plan and share that with them? Because I think there's some future opportunities as well, but if they already know what we have and the ability to market them, it might be a good connection for us.
Mark?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's actually built into the plan to consult with them and to work with them. So the actual final plan is still probably a good year or more out. However, that is built into the plan to actually work with them and to develop a stronger profile.
Thank you, but I don't want to speak for Member Timms. I believe he feels that there's opportunities now with our current structure, but also to engage them on future as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't want to wait till the adoption of the plan to initiate the discussions, as there are currently, as Member Quirk has suggested, opportunities. If we initiate the discussions now, I would appreciate that we take the opportunity as soon as possible.
Okay. All right, so we
Thank
get
you.
confirmation that staff will undertake that direction, so thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you.
I have one issue, and I alluded to it earlier, and that's with respect to the living landscape draft policy, report number 5017 that was passed back April 26th, and it does speak specifically that the public be requested to provide comments by June 30th, 2017. I would like direction and a resolution from this council. I'm going to assume then it's a reconsideration, or is it a simple amendment to make? I'll defer to, I don't know, someone who can answer that question for me. Member Quirk?
I would
Robert's
suggest
Rules of
that,
Order?
given the new information that's provided in terms of the inability for the public to respond in a timely manner, extending it by amending it would probably not necessarily be considered reconsideration.
Yeah.
So I would move that we amend the report to extend the deadline until the 30th of September, as per the request by the public to comment on it.
Okay, so I concur. It's not a fundamental change to the motion. It just changes the date. So I'll accept that as an amendment. So we have an amendment on the floor right now. Speaking to the amendment. Seconded by Member Beatty. Speaking to the amendment. Member Shurton.
Unless I heard something different, I thought that the request was for September 15th, not the 30th.
Okay, so September 15th. Yep. Okay. September 30th then. Okay, we are in agreement on September 30th. That is a friendly amendment to the motion that was passed in April 26th. Any more questions or comments to that? Seeing none. Oh, Member Timms.
First of all, thank you for that and the opportunity to have the public meeting in St. Catharines. It did land on the day of the chemical truck rollover on the highway. So we did get one city councilor out, but the rest of them were out looking after traffic control in St. Catharines. So the opportunity to extend and have further comment by that extended date is helpful. And just make sure it's posted as much as possible on our websites and social media or whatever, that we can make that make some kind of press release about that. The extended comment time would be helpful in my community. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that we convey the extension of that date for public comments. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you for that cooperation.
Just a second one. Seeing as we had a new staff member introduced today with regard to the Niagara River Action Plan, Remedial Action Plan, I would ask that we give consideration for revamping the process of seeking Ramsar designation, in particular as we're approaching a significant anniversary for this organization and a potential event here for all conservation authorities. We spent a lot of time today, I think, in a very positive way, noting that there are ways and means of improving our water quality. The Niagara River is a champion trophy model in terms of that. I know that there's been some misunderstanding or perhaps even objection with regard to the concept of wetlands because of the connotation that it's given in the province of Ontario. But I think it would serve as a significant message about what we're all about in terms of looking at a target and to not give up hope for the remaining watershed in terms of improving the water quality. So I'll leave that as the staff direction if I can.
Okay. And I appreciate those comments. So speaking to that, I did receive a letter just yesterday, I believe, from Janice Thomas, chairwoman of the Niagara Parks Commission. She's looking for direction from this board as well. Again, I'm not about to make any unilateral decisions with respect to Ramsar. I will be looking to this board to give me direction and to provide staff direction as far as what our involvement is going to be in the Ramsar. I'll be touching base with our newest staff member just to see where we can lend support, if at all. So we will take that as staff direction, and we'll be bringing some information forward to this board. So thank you for bringing that forward, Member Beatty. Any other questions under new business? Mickey? New business?
Yeah, if you give me a few minutes, what I want to propose. There's one in Port Colborne Quarry, and I believe there's one in Binbrook. What I'm going to propose doesn't cost us any money.
Okay.
If there's any money, it's only minimal. I'm proposing that we put an Osprey telephone pole in Mel Swartz Park. The reason I'm asking this, when we were doing the pollinating garden, there was a pair fishing in Lake Gibson. So all we need is a telephone pole, a pallet, both are used, some 2x4s, and the top of a 45-gallon oil drum as a protector so nothing can climb up the pole.
Okay.
And I like this, if the board approves it, I like to see it go in before fall, because to get in there, winter comes and spring, you can't get in. You know, ground is too soft. Right now, the ground is good. So that's up to the board.
Okay. So another great initiative that you want to undertake, Mickey, and it's very, very well appreciated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to direct you to coordinate with staff, our ecologists, and certainly our maintenance people. If there's a cost to that, come back to this board with a plan to possibly bring that to fruition with some costing. We'll bring it to the board, we'll vote on it, but it's a great initiative and we'll bring it forward.
Well, first, we got to get permission from Teddy and Soil Council.
Yep, so
and second, if Hydro will go in and put the pole in for us.
Okay, so we'll develop some partnerships and we'll see if it's possible, but we'll bring it back to the board once we've developed that plan in a little bit more formalized way.
Okay.
So thank you for bringing that forward.
If you give me permission, I'll do
Yep, you have permission, so coordinate with staff and we'll see if we can get it done. Okay? Thank you for bringing that forward. Any other new business? Seeing none, yes. So we have a closed session item, so I'm going to need a motion to go into closed session. Member Kasperset, seconded by Member Shurton. We are in closed session, but we will give time to, a few minutes to get into closed session. So thank you.